to order at 6 p.m. or 1 after 6. Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask Melinda to lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we all got new email. I got an email with new schedules, budget schedules, and some explanations for some adjustments. I think it's fun. So I don't know where we want to start tonight, other than citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments from Zoom? No citizens' comments, so then we'll move on to educational update. Anything you wanna?
Nothing at this time, except that we had a wonderful mystery dinner theater on Friday night. The culinary students and the drama students put that together. Thank you for the board members that were able to attend. And the boys basketball team won their game over Plainfield. So that was a good Friday night.
Very good Friday. Okay. Then we will get right into the budget. And we have Deb with us tonight, so do we want to start with the athletic department then, since we have Deb with us?
Mr. Sedlitz, I'm gonna ask you, do you want to start with the athletic budget?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. I think that's what we.
Okay. Yes, it is really like that. So Deb, at the last meeting, I informed the board of the situation with football. And the expense associated with that, not that, neither one of us want to recommend a reduction there at any cost. But we needed to bring that cost to the board. So we thought we'd invite you here tonight to kind of talk about that. And then, anything else we want to look at in the athletic budget.
Do you need to say something or you have a question?
I don't know.
No, you want. Go 17.
I'll start. So football is down to 3. Is that 3 just who we know is returning? Is there potentially more players? 5 right now.
Senior,
Okay,
2 of them quit,
okay,
but I counted them,
okay,
quit last year, or asked to leave because they did not. They consistently did not show up for practice, show up for game day, or they weren't committed to.
okay.
One of the other 3 that are left had a season-ending injury, which he may rehab back. I don't know. I question him. He doesn't know if he's gonna play next year, but he's in the count.
Okay,
So that's the 5. There are kids in middle school that play football, but most of those kids that play football are going to kill me. The 2 kids that said they were coming here are kids that are marginal as far as grades, so they may not be
well, fine.
eligible. We also up for our renewal for the tryout, which has to go into May 15th. And occasionally we get locked in for a year, but normally it's a 2-year.
Okay. And what's the cost for the football co-op?
It's about 25.
1,000
1,000
Yeah.
for 2 years or per year?
Per year,
Per year.
For 3 kids to play football,
or maybe 5,
maybe 5.
or maybe 7, you don't know. And it's only to the next.
Right.
We've consistently had between 8 and 10 kids, but this is a class that's leaving the last football group, other than the 2 that are left as juniors. The rest of those kids are underclassmen. They're 2 juniors that are
Right.
left. Consistently played for the 4 years.
Can you request a 1-year contract? To see how it goes, if there's more, no,
We're at the mercy of the CIAC and the Board of Control. We present the numbers and they determine what they're gonna offer us.
okay.
Can we offer a signing bonus in Tiger Bucks to our 8th graders? Can we offer a signing bonus in Tiger Bucks to our 8th graders?
Yeah.
So, Deb, for the 25,000, what do we get for that?
Plus the kids every day down for practice. We pay the buses one way and that's usually about between 8 and 10.
Yeah.
And then the rest is, each of the parts of the co-op tri-op have things that they pay, like Putnam pays for all the transportation when we have away games and stuff, and it's usually 2 buses because of the number of kids, and it's costly because you're going for a number of hours. So they pay for that, and they pay for some of the games that are held at Putnam, they pay for the officials and the upkeep on the field. Ellis pays for all the JV games, the officials, all the rest of the varsity. The uniform replacement is between the 3 of us. They contribute,
Out of the 25, or is that additional? So,
they give us a percentage, which comes into our budget. What you bill tell you, like we get 3,500 from Ellis. 3,500 come in from Ellis toward our 15. That's not part of our 15, but it goes in and we hold it for a uniform replacement.
Mhm.
It's cheerleaders or / football, whatever one we need. So everybody contributes a part. And it's about the same for everybody.
So-
15 for all 3 of us. It's
So-
not cheap to run football.
Right, so I guess that's where I'm going with this, because the 25,000, when you look at the cost of our other sports, in-house sports. That 25,000 can go a long way. But at the same point. We're doing whatever we can, obviously, to retain students. I mean, when we were here, we lost students to Putnam for football, you name it, and it cost us a state championship in 1985 in baseball because of that. So I understand the cost, but
And we've managed to, this is not the first year. This has been the cost that we've had. Well, the last number of years.
yeah,
Right,
we
that's what
Here in the budget.
amortize that over 10 students versus 3. It's a better
It's a-
cost
it's a
ratio.
crapshoot from 1 year to the next,
Yeah.
because right now, I know the kids that have signed up and they're in that count, but you never know if somebody comes into the district, or
Mhm.
somebody moves. And also, you may have kids that plan on going to Killingly that don't go to Killingly, but there's not a large number of kids that are playing football.
So I think, I don't know if it was Matt or Danielle, someone said about the 1 year, but if you pay the 25, you're locked in, you don't get that 25 back if we had 0 students, right?
Oh, well, if we're in the memorandum of agreement. Is written through Ellis, because
it's
for the whole
non-refundable.
school,
Non-refundable.
because they're still running their program under the assumption that we're part of that whole co-op.
Yeah.
Or tryout.
Whether we have 1, 2, or 16.
So question, so regarding the buses, which is like almost 30 to 40% of the budget. I know like this year in particular, we did have buses originally at the beginning, but I don't think that any of them ended up using it. As the season progressed, because they were all juniors and seniors and they drove themselves,
Except we had a cheerleader,
Uh,
so I
Okay.
bust the one.
Can we
cheerleader.
offer a sport without transportation? So if they sign up for the sport, they know that they've got to. The parents have to get their student to Ellis.
Mhm.
That way we can run the program and just put the caveat that's on the parents if their child signs up for the sport.
'Cause you can do
Reducing the
anything you want.
cost by a significant
monetarily.
amount,
In the past, we ran it because we wanted those kids. That wanted the opportunity, but didn't have that parent to go down to pick them up.
Right.
They actually have to get rides back. We only bus them in one direction.
Right, so I'm saying, what if we say, just as a concept, that we don't provide busing, getting the price down more like $15-ish thousand. And then also, I know my son is one of the 2 juniors that play football. There's a lot of fundraising that our students participate for that football program. I mean, a lot of fundraising.
that brings in major money. Now, I know obviously that goes to Ellis.
What doesn't?
Okay, so how does that work?
That-
And
all
does that fundraising
because
that's,
it's a state entity,
okay,
that fundraising money does not go into their coffers.
Okay,
Because
so
then
where does it
becomes
go?
Part of the state coffer. So that money comes here. We house the QV Pride money under, in the student activities under QV Pride. That money's there and that pays for instance, the coaches, 4 of the coaches are going to a football clinic.
right,
The kids get their T-shirts or their hats.
Okay.
They get, sometimes they get the awards, that when they offer them at the awards. There's pieces of equipment that, the money that we have is short from the 3 schools. So if they need like a sled or a kicking tee or whatever it is that they're looking for, Joe gives me a list, and if we can't fund it through our money. For instance, this year, we need a whole new portaphone system. The portaphone system that we have, we bought secondhand. 2 of them we can't repair anymore. So right away, we know it's $2,500 right there. So
Right.
it's probably gonna come out of that fundraising.
I see,
So it's the added things that
Yeah.
you try to give the kids. to
yeah,
make the
no,
program
absolutely.
work. And this year was probably their best year fundraising because they did that,
They did a bunch of things, they did just a straight up donation, Yeah. but the straight up like cash contribution, don't, they did
right.
like a
There was a
GoFundMe kind of thing, yeah, yeah,
Right, it was a
Right.
promotion on social media.
right,
Yeah.
right.
That was their big one this year.
Would Coach A come in and talk to the 8th graders or 7th graders, 8th graders and let them know about his coaching program? I mean, as a, you know,
Violation.
oh, it is. Oh, all right. To let them know that that's a sport that we have, that's still a
They know we
recording.
have that sport.
Yeah.
Like you're
Okay.
thinking, but it's illegal.
Ah, well, that's a bummer.
It's illegal to retain your own students.
So wait, it's recruiting violation.
That's a recruiting violation, but our students are being recruited by
Be to specific.
killingly, which is.
I think it's
It
families.
has to do with the CIAC group, the 3 schools.
They're already declared 9th graders,
Correct.
Oh,
because if they're considered still an 8th grader matriculated, then that can be construed as a recruitment
Yeah,
violation.
CIAC recruit.
so, and just to finish what I was gonna say, I would piggyback off of what Heather mentioned with transportation. I think since it's only one way anyway, and if we have other sports that we have children going to Woodstock for, the transportation's on the parents, so I think that is a good suggestion. Isn't that what, if they wanted to play field hockey or ice hockey or
Yeah.
what?
Oh,
what's
we had
the-
gymnastics.
Yeah,
Then we had gymnastics too for a while, right?
Oh, we didn't transport.
yeah,
them.
so I think
They drove themselves.
kind of putting QVP under that
Right.
thing where you have to transport yourself.
Yeah, we can look into that. Gotta reduce the cost somehow.
Player meeting, when we go over everything, we just have to mention to them that they'll have to get their own rides down. That also means that if there's a game and they have to get out early, they have to find a way early to catch the bus. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just letting you know logistically.
Maybe even. Yeah,
How long is the season?
From the middle of August until Thanksgiving.
Big, it's one of the longer sports, I think that.
Is the 25,000 just like a set, no matter how many kids play, or is it like these?
It's our contribution as a member of the tryout.
But within that
It's
25,000,
like 15 is what is solid. The other 8 to 10 is the busing, depending on how many times the kids were making down.
So if we say no busing, then we're responsible for 15.
15, yes.
or if we could figure out maybe, would there be a busing for game days only that we could do instead of busing for practices? If it's.
I think the kids are usually.
Yeah.
If they're gonna drive for one thing, they'll be prepared for the
to
other.
drive, okay.
So on the athletic side, just even this, but what are some of the other heavy hitters that you see this year?
It's
Meaning number wise, like anything that,
Well, look, I put uniforms in there because we're on like around 7 to 10 year rotation for uniforms.
That's all sports or,
Well, I put both soccer teams in there, I put baseball team in, if you look at the rotation, we haven't had any uniforms in a while, that's also catch 22. Right now, our numbers for boys soccer next year, right now, it looks like we got like 4 kids, so I don't even know. Where we're gonna have enough numbers for boys soccer. There's no place for us to play, because Putnam, yeah, they have magic number, they have 16 or above, so we can't go there. Unless they say to their kids, oh yeah, we're gonna bring Turtle on, but you can't qualify for the state tournament. They're not gonna do that, and I wouldn't do that, because
possibly,
they tried to do that to us 2 years ago when I tried to help Putnam out. I had 2 girls, one ring on my team, but I had 18 kids. State said, sure, they can come on your team, but you can't qualify for the state tournament. So, and the girls that were struggling, I tried to do a tryout this year with Ellis. We went through, it's Ellis, Putnam, and us for girls soccer. But we know the numbers aren't gonna work with the state, because I have, in order for that to work, I would have to have 5 kids or less, and I have probably 8
for girls soccer.
girls soccer. I'm losing 9 girls this year. Boys lost 9 seniors out of 17, and a bunch of those kids, 2 of those kids for sure have already transferred, so we got probably 4 kids left. Girls soccer, I'm losing 9 girls this year. I had 21, then 2 kids were injured all year, they couldn't play, and then what I had left over, I had I guesstimate maybe 10 kids, but let me tell you, the level of play for the 10 kids I have, that's why I was trying to go with Putnam and Ellis, because I'm afraid some of those kids have never played before, they just come out because they want to be part of something. They're not really players that on the field have the skill to make it, first of all, competitive, second of all, safe.
There's not many coming up in middle school.
We polled the 8th graders, and all the 8th grade girls out of that team that did really well, there's probably 1 kid coming to our building. The numbers I've gotten from what I've talked to kids and stuff like that, I don't know how big the middle school class is total. Do you know what the 8th grade fell class is?
Not off the top of my head, but I can get it for you in a minute.
What's it say? It's like 80, 82.
It could be.
So
Hang on a minute.
is it fair,
That I think we're getting.
so is it fair to say that the athletic budget numbers that you have in here are kind of fluid? They're,
I put in for uniforms, but obviously
We took it
I'm
out.
not gonna have a boys soccer team. I'm not
No
gonna
box,
take it out.
they do bother, yeah.
And usually when I buy, if it's a sport like this year, boys and girls basketball, they got new uniforms. If I buy for one, I buy for the other. I don't pick and choose boys and then girls maybe sometime. I do
so,
both. So if I was gonna do soccer this year, I would do both sides.
so is it,
68.
68, so of that 68, I heard we're getting like 32 of those.
so Kathleen, if high school, I know it's a little bit of more work, but should we look at a contingency plan? Worst case scenario is we have the fully loaded budget, but if we don't have some of these situations come to fruition, what does that number look like? Just so we, it could be a difference of 50 grand, 75 grand,
Oh, I could take the uniforms out of it.
Well, you have uniforms, you have busing,
Did we already do that, Bill?
you have coach stipends, I mean, there's,
Essentially, cuts that were made prior to the version that's in front of the board brought a lot of the equipment lines down to what their prior year
Yeah.
levels. were
but what
in
about
anticipation.
What
So
about coach stipends and the transportation? Because if you don't have the teams, you don't have the coaches nor the transportation. So I guess what I'm saying is worst case scenario is fully loaded. We have all the teams. That is X.
Yep.
Without that, what does that other number look like?
Yeah, and tell us what
Right.
what has been taken out. So if it's, we've taken out boys soccer uniforms, boys soccer coaches, anticipating that it might not happen, then at least we can quantify what that is.
Well, I put everything in there that we would need to bring everybody up. Normally, I don't do that. Normally, I put one team up. This year, I put soccer in, baseball uniforms, and golf shirts I do every year. But I would take probably, well, even baseball. The crapshoot, I have it in there, but last year we didn't field a team. This year I hope we're fielding a team, but I didn't buy new uniforms, we're using what we've got. And some of those pinstripes, uniform, you might have used.
Like we did one year, we had a marshmallow. With it.
I know Bill and I took that into consideration when we brought those numbers down. So we've already done some of that.
I just think hopefully it does not come to fruition, but. At least we kind of know where the number would be if it did, you know.
I don't think it's gonna amount to enough to really push the budget, and that is something to look at. If the cuts, which.
I think when you throw when you throw all of it, you're it's probably a $50,000, $60,000 hit, I would imagine.
Yes, Justin.
So I would. Being an athlete throughout my entire school career, I would rather leave the money in there and take the chance that we are going to fill a team, and if we don't, we have the ability to move that money over for some capital investment on the athletic side.
Yeah, I'm not saying we take it out. All I'm saying is just for awareness.
And I'm completely on board with that, but I say we go with the number loaded the exact way it is. And if we don't field the baseball team, if we don't field soccer teams, move it over to capital investment for the athletic side. I'm sure there's something on the capital athletic side that you need besides uniforms.
We might need a boiler.
But having gone through this a couple of years now, it always ends up that we will have cuts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if we have cuts and we know this data, it is probably in our best interest to remove where we know we can remove, so we don't lose teaching staff and other things that we can't live without.
Exactly,
know,
but we don't need to do it right this.
No,
minute.
no, absolutely.
No.
I'm on agreement that we keep it as is,
Yeah.
but we have back pocket information that if we have to make cuts, that these are places that are better suited.
In
Yes.
that same vein, though, we also have a new track coming in this summer, fall. We can't be using that as a place to cut. Should referendums in the future fail either. And that's something we need to make sure that we're not doing either, that we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul.
And I know there's some capital equipment in the track budget from the referendum approval, but not everything. There's not hurdles, or not shot puts, javelin, whatever.
Okay.
Track and field equipment is not there, so. This might be the chance where if this does pass and we do have additional capital on the athletic side, it's a chance for us to get ready for that track and field season. Having new track.
Okay, we don't have capital in our budget, Justin. What we have is repair, maintenance, and we need to make sure that we have maintenance on the track. Capital is a separate budget all on its own.
But by capital, I'm talking about the equipment, and that's in
Supplies.
supplies,
Okay.
right? That's in your butt, that's in.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
it's
right.
wording.
Just use the proper terminology. Because capital belongs in its own separate, we tell the town that we need capital, like we're doing the lockers, or that's what's in the
Well,
capital
obviously,
budget
I'm
this year.
My balls, but.
What's
if I
in
do
our
the stop loss,
capital?
I'm gonna just change my.
Right.
What item
Right.
I'm gonna buy.
Right.
That, I know I do that normally, that's just normal.
And that's what I was, leave the budget,
Mhm.
leave the budget loaded. Because we do have a new track coming in.
Yeah.
And the ability to maybe beef up the program, so.
And
No.
I know that Justin, at the last meeting, you talked about the athletic facilities upgrade so that we could maintain the track. Bill and I talked about it and we thought we would put that line in next year's budget. Because obviously the track is gonna be new, but then shift some money from other lines into that, so it's specific to the track or the athletic department.
Yeah, we need to see that, and we need the public to see that.
And I think that's something that we make sure that we do in this year's presentation, right? Even though it's not going in this year's, say that we're looking forward to next year. With it, I think it'll gain a lot of voter support that we're looking 2 years ahead at making sure there's an athletic maintenance budget, athletic facilities maintenance budget.
The people that pass the track want to see it maintained.
Right,
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
So I, unlike Justin and Tom and Heather, and I don't know anybody else, but I was not an athlete in high school, but I do understand the importance of it to the students, and this is probably like the most depressing meeting I've been
Well, if
to.
you
I
look at
just,
the soccer team this year, the kids that are on that team, they're probably 2 soccer players, but we generated enough interest in that group of kids who liked each other enough, they decided, we're gonna play. They played for 2 years together. They haven't won a game in 5 years, but they had a good time.
that's why they made a team.
To get that group of kids that's gonna buy into it, and stay
Right.
together. So
Right, but just hearing how many kids are going away as 8th graders into 9th graders, just, that's, to me, just academically, you know, for the school, it's depressing, but for the athletic program, it's like, it's soul crushing.
right, so we got like 220 kids in the high school right now.
213.
Okay, so with my numbers, I think we're gonna be below 200 if this happens next year, and you're trying to run a full comprehensive program with under 200 kids, when you're offering 2 soccers, a football, cross-country, boys and girls. Initially, we had 1 of each, 1 boy, 1 girl. We've offered it, and it's not even cost effective to do a co-op with that, because to bus them to another school is cheaper for me to pay for a coach to just keep them here and just pay for the lousy 3 meets that they're going to.
Yeah.
Bus. It's cheaper to keep them.
Yeah.
Basketball, you've got boys and girls basketball. The girls' number after this year, you probably just have a varsity team next year. Boys varsity for basketball probably next year. Right now, the boys today, we're down, we played with 6 boys last Friday for the JV, and now another kid is, well, he's on vacation right now, so now we're down to 1 kid sick and 1 sick, so we canceled the JV program for tomorrow's game, and probably it's gonna end up that way for the rest of the year.
Wow.
And you've got 9 seniors on the starting group. So, got indoor track, we ended up with 12 kids this year. Softball, I think we'll be okay this year. Baseball, I'm still holding my breath. I told the league that we're playing baseball. I'm hoping we have enough, but determining factor is going to be the eligibility line, grades close. This, the end of the semester is going to determine their spring eligibility.
Right.
And then we've got golf. We have an upsurge in golf right now. We got 15.
Wow.
Okay,
is
so
there
golf
any
and
work-
track, there are strong points.
Track right now, between, 15 to 18 right now. But
I have a lot of track kids. You gotta- Oh, but yeah,
the
no,
tracks,
it's,
the tracks are multi-use.
I know.
You know,
Question.
yes.
Why does everybody go to Killingly and to other schools to play these sports? Like, what are they offering them that we're not?
Well, they're going, it doesn't mean they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
The kids have the opportunity to be here. You're one, if you want to play a sport
Yeah,
here,
that's what I
because of
mean.
our numbers, you're gonna.
Like
play.
you're in, so
They're
why
going
would
to
they
a
leave?
large pool over there,
Mm-hmm,
and they may have an inflated ego about their ability.
mm-hmm. That's what I don't understand. If it's like a guarantee here to be on a varsity team even, why are they leaving?
Not just killing leaders, they go to Ellis too.
well, and there
We've
is,
lost kids to Ellis, Killingly. We've had a couple go to Woodstock Academy. There's a couple that always go to Marinapolis. Occasionally, there's one that goes out to St. John's. We've had a couple at the arts place in Willimantic. They're not all athletes, but that's
That's
how
where they go.
our population's being spread out by choice.
Melinda, is there any way, and I know this is on your list of things, but with the whole Killingly drama, is there any way to resolve or get some feedback from the state sooner than later about how we can resolve our ongoing
Well, I read
issues
the
with them?
regulations again, and there wasn't really much that we could do. I haven't spoken to anyone at the State Department yet to complain, because really I'm filing a complaint, right?
Right.
I thought my first conversation should be with the superintendent there. and ask what's been going on. And, we'll have that conversation, but, they are fulfilling what they have to do by allowing kids to take that one class. But they're not in a designated program of study, as far as I'm concerned. So, but that's the sticking point, right? School choice, that's it. It's choice, and families and students can choose where they want to go. You have to remember that the 8th grade class is small this year, 68. We're usually in the mid-80s. So that's a small class coming through.
Right.
So take out the normal 20 students that don't go on to Turtle Lot, and that drops the number down.
Right. But I'd venture to say that of the percentage that goes to Killingly, or that was going to Killingly,
Specifically for sports.
it's more than half, I would say, is going there for their sports program, you know? And I think if it's 20 kids, then that would be 10 more kids that play sports that would end up likely at Turtle Lot if we put a kibosh on what they're doing, you know?
It's on both ends, because we're losing 59 seniors, but you're only bringing in maybe 40, maybe 38.
Yeah.
It's too bad they couldn't red shirt like they have to in college when you transfer for college.
They do have a transfer rule.
Right, but they're considered not-
Because they're going as 9th graders. As
Right.
8th Graders, they're not.
They are not considered. It's too bad that can't be
10th grader will go. And they have to
adjusted.
sit, depending on what sport it is, they have to sit. It's a sport that they're in, they have to sit a year. If it's not, if they go in the fall and they're there so many days, and what they want is actually baseball in the spring, they're good to go.
Do we know how many of these, and it's a random question, but do we know how many of our students that are making the jump to Killingly are actually getting playtime?
I don't know that.
Curious to know what that looks like.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Hey, because like you said earlier, if you're not getting playtime at Killingly and you're guaranteed playtime here,
What have we always been a school of choice with Killingly? Because I hear stories from, Tom and people about how we had this great sports program and it was so full and everything, and like what has happened over the last few years that.
Since I've been here, students have gone to the BOAG and Ellis, and
That's been, yeah, in my experience, just they go.
Even when we were here, we lost students, but it
Ellis
was,
and
it
Marinapolis.
was Ellis and Marinapolis was the big one.
Mhm.
They went to Marinapolis, yeah, they always went to Marinapolis for soccer. They never got really playtime because they had all, South American players. But we lost, like I just said, we lost two specific people. At the time, because we did not have football, and they went to Putnam and played football, it was Rusty Green and David Austin. In 1985, we would have had a state baseball championship if we didn't lose those two students. But again, we've always had the issue, but never to this extent.
Well, then before Killingly, you used to have to raise an animal, their program
Yeah.
changed.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
If it's a VOAG program,
Right,
then you come out with a VOAG specialty from high school, like when my
Yeah.
daughter goes to Ellis, she's gonna come out and be not certified, but be prepared to be a mason, right? She could go and do masonry.
right.
Kid going through the Killingly, taking a couple animal courses, doesn't make them eligible to be a farmer or
That
work at a
program
farm.
changed not that
Right,
long
right.
ago. It used to be when I first got on the board, you had to have
Right, I remember
an
that.
animal, like a lot of kids did eggs with a chicken. A rabbit, some easy.
A worthwhile course of study. Course of
Okay.
study is what it is.
Basically,
But then they changed it.
That's because they had a full partnership like with FFA. And that was part of it, is they had to have,
Keep the farmers up.
and while they still have that partnership according to their presentation, because I went online and I watched it, it's still, they are even their students that are coming in from Killingly, they're only required to take one ag course per semester. And there's again, no requirement that they stay in a particular program of study. Unlike at Ellis, at least at Ellis, you do your 1 year of exploratory, you're put, and then your sophomore year through senior year, you're in your particular shop and you are in your program of study. with FOAG, that is not occurring, and, you know, we do have those students that they wanna do, whether it's large animal or all of those other things, that's great, but if we're not seeing that,
Hmm.
and they're not staying in that particular program of study to finish, then is that
But it's not just the animals, they have articles.
I've already
right? Yeah, they
got
have
the
horticulture, they've
actual-
got engineering, they have bioengineering, they have quite a bit, but from what Melinda's seen from the transcripts, they're not staying in a particular track. They're taking this course, and the next semester they'll take one that's completely unrelated, and then another one that's unrelated, and then another one that's unrelated. So then what is the point of actually going if you're not staying in a particular course of study?
Yeah.
Because what are you doing
we're
with that
paying-
degree? What are you
Yeah,
doing with
okay,
your,
but
with your
let's-
diploma
let's
afterwards?
Get back
But-
to the case in point. here. We're really supposed to be talking about the budget.
Well, $125,000 in the budget.
We
so.
can complain about Killingly, so we're blue in the face, but once we get
We gotta do a better job of marketing the programs. That's,
Well, that's what I was just gonna.
that,
say.
and we gotta file a complaint with the state and.
Well, just an athletic thing. I don't think, I mean, we get all-star, all-state athletes all the time, and I don't know if that's maybe not getting to the eighth grade, because I think a lot of parents think that their kids are gonna go to a big school and their names are gonna be in the paper and their names, because that's the stuff that colleges are looking for, is the all-state kids. They're not looking for the, you know, just the kid that is one of 50 in a championship team, you know, so I think if we can kind of showcase that we do have students that go on to beyond the all-state, or in, with Ellis, it's the conference kids that get picked. Because I truly think, because I know a lot of us think our kids are great at what they do, but once we realize that they're, you know, we all think our kids are great. So, you know, and I think that if we can, like Jess was just saying, show our strong points, that we do have, you know, like my nephew Josh, I wouldn't think that he would not be an all-state kid at some point, because I mean, his name's in the paper, he's doing very well.
All-star.
All-star, that's what I mean, all-star.
That's different than
Yes,
all-state.
but all-star, but you know, it takes one kid and one team, and I think that, you know, they just don't see that, you know, it can happen.
He was
But
recognized as athlete of the week early in the season, but
Yeah.
you've got teams from 19 schools all vying, and everybody puts a kid up,
right,
depending on their stats, and then powers it be at the league level, decide
Right.
which ones are gonna be named for that week.
right,
So
every
he
week
was
it's
fortunate
not-
at the beginning of the year, but.
yeah.
that
And
doesn't
I'm
make sense.
And I'm just saying, we have great athletes, and I think that parents just look at Killingly and see state championship and this, that, and the other thing, but it's gonna be a long time before they're getting another state championship. So,
Set great
Yeah.
success.
yes,
He's been on a run for football, so the attraction's there.
yes,
These kids wanna be part of a state championship team,
yeah.
and it's something that's close for them if they decide to go there.
Mhm.
That's why my numbers for soccer have always been good on the girls' side, because success breeds success.
Mhm.
Now we're at the end of that. We're not gonna have the same kind of athlete any longer. They're not playing, so that's why your numbers are gonna drop,
Mhm.
and that program's gonna dwindle also.
Mhm.
But your middle school numbers are stronger.
Right, right now.
Yeah.
I also have to say that I also dropped. Our middle school group is doing better this year because we played in the large division forever. This is the first year that I brought them down to the small division. So they're playing schools that are small, not playing where we're one of the bubble schools in the QBJC. It's usually between Putnam and us. And Putnam's numbers are better than ours, so this year, starting next year, they're going up. I flip-flopped with Wheeler this year. I begged her to take my spot up in the large division because I knew what our talent level was. So we went to the small division and played this year, and for us, it was competitively more even than us going up into the large. If we were in the large division, we'd get killed. Just like Putnam is going up because that's where they belong. For instance, this year for basketball, they're still down in the small division. They beat us by 50-something points in basketball. in middle school. So it's a numbers thing with the other programs that we're playing. Right now in middle school, the biggest schools are Plainfield, Woodstock, Brooklyn. Putnam, one more. Killingly. With the large division. In the small division, Pomfret, Parish Hill, Canterbury, us, and Wheeler's playing up, but they'll be down with us next year.
Lyman, Parish Hill,
That's high school, that's not the middle school.
oh, that's right.
I just had one circle back question about the recruitment violation.
Yeah.
So I know when Dr. Mayo was here and explaining on how they, Ellis and the ag program comes and they do their dog and pony show, for the whole thing. And he was saying that one of the things that Killingly was telling the students is come to Killingly because we have this great football program. And as a result, you're going to be acknowledged, more by colleges and have acceptance, into program. Now, isn't that recruitment for sports? And how are they allowed to do that?
They're allowed in the building, and it depends on how they're presenting their programming. It's supposed to be academic programming, but I've talked to a couple of parents whose kids came home and they questioned them, and there wasn't a lot of programming.
Right, so that's what I'm
talked about,
saying.
because the
It's-
athletics, I agree with
they're doing it, so maybe we should add that to the complaint. If they're not supposed to be recruiting, they kind of are.
Absolutely.
No, we brought that up before too, Heather. Yeah, we've noted that before.
They came in their, remember that year? They came with their uniforms on.
Yes,
That was part of that year I filed
that
the
stuff.
complaint.
I mean, and if we don't call them out on it, they're gonna continue to do it, and it's not right.
But it all boils down to suggest we really need to push our pathway programs, because we're the only school in, not the only school.
What do we
We're
have
the school
budgeted
that
for
has
marketing?
most of them.
I mean, I think. Did I say
Sorry.
something wrong?
We usually use the guideline.
Yeah, all right. Not yet. I think it's recruiting for the pathways for the high school, right? We're talking about two different athletics programs here.
Mhm.
And I think we agree right now that the middle school athletics program is stronger
In the small school district.
in the small school district. And there's a lot of enthusiasm, at least from what I saw this winter season. There's a lot of enthusiasm on both sides, both boys and girls sides. To continue to have those programs, there's a lot of parents that are. I mean, those bleachers, I can't remember a single home game this year where the bleachers were empty. Where you didn't have to fight for a seat when you walked in the door. So. I think from the middle school side. We have a program. The thought is, how do we retain those middle school athletes into high school? Is there something at the middle school level that these students are looking for?
State championships.
Not only from an athletics perspective, but from an academic perspective, that we can provide them in Thompson that we're not today.
Don't know how much more we can provide them. We got the
Right.
welding, we got the cooking, we've got the nursing, we got all kinds of stuff, fire. It's for a small school, we've got an awful lot of stuff. And they're all career pathways. They're all, it's not just college prep. It's life, job prep, career prep, and it's. Yeah, we really gotta push it to the 7th and 8th graders and.
If 4 years ago we had these programs, my son would have stayed.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing breadth programming in 8th grade. Right, there's those career pathways, there's something for the 8th graders this semester, right?
Correct.
And is it all the career pathways or just a couple of them?
So it's scheduling, right? It's what can line up with what the middle, and so the high school's on a block schedule, which is a 90-minute period, and the middle school's on a 45, 50-minute period. So they go up to half of the class. The teachers at the high school have adjusted their curriculum so that when the 8th graders come up, so it's personal finance. We don't have anybody taking Teach Rock. I just had a meeting on this today. They're up there for band. shop. The shop is very popular. I think those 8 kids that come up for shop are, doing well. Part of the issue is that we talked about today is that there's failure rates among some of the students that signed up to go up to the high school. And now we really have to look at, do we set a strict criteria at 8th grade where those students have to be passing their classes in the 8th grade before they go up and take the high school courses. So this semester, which started today, we do have, and we had 8th graders going up there the first semester as well. And we've had part of the conversation that we've been having lately is how do we get the middle school kids up there to spend some quality time? There's one thing about going through a shop, right? And just getting a presentation. Then there's another conversation around experiencing it for a period and seeing what it's like. And so how can we put that together before the end of the school year and then start to engage those 7th graders in that as well?
Yeah, because
We haven't, and Mike Joyce and I talked, we had a big meeting with people from the state who are extremely interested in how a small comprehensive high school is running all these pathways and how did we get funding and how are we making it happen? And one of the big questions is your Board of Ed supportive? Yeah, of course they are. And so our biggest conversation was that, the funding source that comes with all of these things is critical. We've been lucky. We've just been lucky that we've fallen into some grant opportunities that made all this happen. We've got to maintain it, but I think surveying, which Mike and I talked about at that meeting, we haven't surveyed the middle school kids in a while now on what areas of interest that, they would like to look at. So we thought we would put something together and ask them those questions because it's going to help guide us on what we do moving forward.
well, because if you have more veterinarians than welders in the 6th and 7th grades, then maybe we need to start looking at a vet tech pathway program, right? Like that's,
We're already on that
no,
one.
I know, but we focus our area there than over. I'm not saying tailor our curriculum going forward specifically to the group of students that wants it more, but that might help us retain students that would otherwise make the walk to Marianapolis or to Woodstock or to wherever, because they could find some interest here.
Yeah, I mean, when I was hired, that was the biggest question. How are we going to retain kids from grade 8 to 9? We've had some good years where we've actually retained good numbers. And I don't know why it's falling off. Possibly, some of these classes coming up now, when I started when they were in elementary, those are smaller class sizes than what we had originally. Like we had between 80 and 90 kids in every class at the middle school. 68 now. So I don't know, but I do think that we should get some information from middle school students. We just talked about that last week, that, we really need to understand better the pathways we currently have in place. Are you interested in those? And is there something we're missing? We're never going to be able to offer everything. What we should do is specialize on what we can do well and stick with that. So.
Yeah, and if we can, I guess what I'm saying is if we can tailor some of these programs in a versatility level. For example, if we know that we've got a group coming up from the middle school that wants a specific focus in culinary, right? Then we can tailor the program to fit more of that culinary, right? They want to do more catering than restaurant or something like that.
Yes.
Could we maybe even have some alumni meet with families in middle school, like how we do with the high school? Maybe we need to have the alumni meeting with the middle school students so that the middle school parents and students and parents can see this is what high school students have gone on to do. And then from there, I mean, not to toot anybody's horn, but my daughter and her boyfriend graduated in 2019. They just bought a house. And they're, so like they're successful, they're graduated college, they're doing their master's program, they just bought a house in Thompson, mind you. And, that many 22-year-olds are doing that and they grew up in Thompson public schools. So, so maybe having the alumni actually start meeting with your middle school families to see that, like, these kids are going on and doing great things, and it's not, I think we're just dealing with years and years and years of negativity and people saying negative things about the high school, and it's still in there, but parents need to see results, and they want to hear results. So we might not be winning state championships, but our kids are going on and doing great things, and they're being productive citizens, and they're coming back to Thompson,
So,
you know.
sorry, so I think we all agree that our academic programs and our athletic programs are bound very closely together, right? Especially from a student retention perspective. So and I agree with Heather, I think we should look at where there might be some ability to cut in the athletic department. But I personally, I don't know that that's the first place I'm gonna look when it comes down to, because I think athletics are very important to our students' futures.
Well, know that obviously we put together a proposed budget to the Board of Ed, whatever the Board of Ed puts forward to the Board of Finance. However, that comes back after it goes out to the town. Bill and I have already started to think about what are those places that we're gonna have to sacrifice, and I use the word sacrifice, so that we don't impact kids directly. So we have started to look at that, but I'll be honest with you, it doesn't recoup a whole lot of dollars. But it does, that's our next, obviously, that's the work we have to do. We're praying that the budget passes as it is, but in my 7 years here, it has not. There's always got to be a plan B. And we are already starting to talk about plan B. We're really hoping we get some savings out of the healthcare. It came in between 3% and 5% increase, less than the 8%, and Bill's going to talk about that in a few minutes. Maybe it'll come in at 3% and we'll save some dollars there. We're praying for that. But we did, and I don't know if this is the time that you want to segue from the athletic budget, but to Bill's, the work that Bill did this week on the budget overall, especially since the new healthcare dollars came in at a reduction.
So you want me to talk?
Yes. Yes, why don't you bring us up to speed as to where we're at?
So the changes from our last meeting, the more significant ones related to some good news from Michelle and HR, and that the health insurance projected increase dropped from 7% to 8% to 3% to 5%. So by flowing that through the budget model, that helped us out quite a bit to the tune of, I forget the exact number, but it was around $80,000. In addition, we had pulled out the painting money in repairs and maintenance that was still in the budget the last time we spoke. And I'm trying to remember, there was one addition that I had to put in that offset these things. And I'm a little embarrassed on this one, frankly. I had budgeted differently for half of Guy LaPointe, who is the assistant finance director, that we split with the town. So his salary, if you will, is roughly $50,000. I hadn't put that line in my salary spreadsheet. So the sum of those three items, in essence, it brings us to a point where we're at an $885,000 increase. Which is 1.15 bills, Kathleen. I want the two decimal places just for you. So we are, that's down almost $100,000 from where we were last budget. And it's really all on the backs of some good news from insurance, which doesn't happen all the time. However, also keep in mind, and I do this always, when I'm given a range, they're talking 3 to 5. I think it's prudent to budget at 5. I sure hope it's 3. But
I just have a question about the healthcare budget. So I know in the past, we put forth a budget based on a projected percentage. And sometimes that has bitten us in the butt, you know,
Yeah.
because the budget has to go to the town before we actually get the real numbers from our healthcare policy. Right? It's like a couple of weeks off.
The numbers are, we are getting that feedback from the insurers earlier in the process this year. Like I said, it was, and I talked to Michelle about this as often as I talked to Paul, the assessor, about where the mill rate's at. Or where the grand list is at, I guess more accurately. So I feel pretty good about that 5%. Like I said, I'm hoping it comes in at 4 or so and helps us out a little bit. We did shift from a model a few years ago where we would simply apply that increase to the prior year budget, whereas now we actually do the full roster of all the employees who are on payroll, whether or not they're on benefits, if they're on benefits, what level they're on. And then we budget for the district's portion of that spend, because as I'm sure all of you do, you pay for a portion of your benefits. So it's, roughly 80% cost of the district. So that calculation is all baked in to come up with this number. It's a little, when you're faced with the budget history that we deal with on a year-to-year basis, it's very tempting. Well, it's tempting. Sometimes it's proven budget practice to try to put the budget on the high end of your range for everything. The problem is, if you do that across the board, we would be sitting at, a much, much higher ask. So what we've done over the last 2 years, and especially this year, is try to be a little more precise and maybe more realistic. And that's really what has gotten us here. And in this instance, by being at the high end of the range when we were at 7, 8 and dropping to 5, that helped us out quite a bit. So I guess Kathleen, you and to the whole board, the broader board, you have some room compared to where we were last week to consider some of the items that you were thinking about last week.
And then, Bill, you did some other work to answer some of the questions that the board had
Yes.
posed. You might want to review that.
So in your packet, there are, I think, 3 specific questions. You would ask for the detail behind the plant repair and maintenance budget. That's page RM1 in your packet. So this sheet shows the specific detail that makes up the $167,100. This is where the painting work came out of this specific line. So you can peruse that for your information.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
So that number is what is in our budget, and that is, in addition, there's capital projects that are
Yes.
an additional pool of money for an additional pool of stuff.
Talking about a couple of different painting things, right?
Yeah.
The painting that was in this budget was sort of your normal repair and maintenance type painting, if the classroom looks sloppy or a hallway or whatnot. The item that you're thinking of is the hallway locker painting in the high school, which is actually in the town capital budget. It's an item that's been there at least 2 years
Yes.
running, maybe longer. Well, yes, 2 years running, because prior to that, you'll remember that we recently redid the locker rooms in the high school. They came out beautiful. That was handled in exactly the same way. It was a capital item on the town budget. It's a more significant.
Actually, they went in hand at that time, and then we had to drop one.
I have a question, and I know Bill Birch isn't here to necessarily answer, but maybe if someone can ask him this. So obviously, this is the list of what he feels is necessary for
Yeah,
next year, which I totally understand. What I'm curious of, though, is there things that are not on the list because that need to be done, but maybe he's like, well, I don't want to overkill my budget. I'm going to prioritize the ones that I think have to be done this
I
year.
would argue that painting work that.
Yes,
it
it was
the budget is a great example.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for instance, I know Jess had mentioned something with the locker rooms in the middle school that obviously he's not aware of and obviously isn't on the list.
And he
You
and
know-
I have not taken that stroll yet, but
Okay.
he did start to address some of the issues that were in that locker room last week.
And and again, I don't walk the hall of all the buildings to know the ins and outs of what's got to get done, But I just noticed the other day when I was pulling up into the high school parking lot that the softball field light poles are pretty rusty, so I just, are there things like that aren't
They're not in the budget at
right?
all.
So I'm just wondering, I'd be curious to see the Bill Birch list, like if
If he had an unlimited
Right.
pot of money,
What-
what are the
what
projects
really
that need
needs
to
to
be
get
done,
done?
so we can
Right.
start putting them in a schedule?
that and also to the town, to let them know that we are really being cognizant of the dollars amounts that we are putting forth and asking for, that there really is a whole lot of other things that we should probably do that we know the town can't stomach this year, that we are gonna push
So
it
that-
down the road again, you
That
know?
list does exist. He
Right.
has a 5-year projected spreadsheet. We upload it when we put the HVAC grant in. He has that projected list. Since I've come, and we've done little on that list. I can tell you upgrades to the high school science labs is on that list. And
Right,
there are big ticket items on that list
Right.
that we've never even brought forward. The lockers in the hallways, every time SDE comes here to do a tour, Greg Dresco, he points out those darn lockers every single time.
Right.
I know when NIAS comes, they're gonna look at the lockers, right? They
Right.
stick out like an eyesore, especially because a couple of years ago, we put the new flooring in, and so now they really stand out.
right.
Is there a list? There is a list,
Yeah.
but we've not shared that with the world because we're
Right.
just,
I guess my point though is that, I think the town thinks that they're just, I think they think that there's fat in here, whereas we have already gone through the task of prioritizing the ones that have to get done. That
Right.
these aren't, oh, we'd like to see XYZ done list.
So-
That list is the big one that no one has seen yet, you know what I mean? And we have already done that due diligence for the town's benefit to really, tighten up our belt and sharpen our pencil and are only putting forth what absolutely has to get done this year. There's no room for cuts. This has to get done.
So,
Yeah,
know?
I think that, sorry,
no, go ahead.
I think to Heather's point, it doesn't hurt to publish this list
No.
at all. To
And
the
say,
public.
we aren't gonna tackle all these things. We are only prioritizing this,
We've got $7 million worth of building improvements
I
that
was
we'd
gonna
love to
say,
do,
But
Right.
you're also
but here's
yeah. I was
167,000.
gonna say the exact same thing, yeah.
remember that 167,000, I want to bring your attention to that, is just basic.
Right, that's what we're
maintenance.
saying.
Right, but they don't
Right.
understand that
Right,
unless
so
they're
when-
told that, you know
So
what I
they
mean?
they think we're getting, with this $167,000, they think that there are people, the they is obviously esoteric. We're painting the lockers with gold leaf, no, we're 167 is just to keep the rust off, so that proverbial, to keep us functioning.
And that's the outside of the lockers. If you opened up some of
Oh, I'm
them.
sure they've got Yeah.
They're disgusting.
I do have a question relative to the list, because there's some things I see on here that are not like electrical repairs, right? I'm sure there's a couple of things that have to get repaired from an electrical perspective, but I don't think there's 15,000 right?
Oh,
$15,000.
in the course of a year, I can tell you that we're always running high in electrical
Okay.
repairs.
But I guess where I was going with that is we know sprinkler testing is gonna cost
Right.
$6,500, right?
Mhm.
And that has to be done in order for us to continue to be open as a facility.
Correct.
Where I'm going with this question is, what on this list and if it's everything on this list, that's awesome. What on this list has to be done, right? So when if the budget does come back from the Board of Finance and is cut. This list is firm and solid, right? This list doesn't change.
Right now, the one you have before you is what has to be done.
Okay.
That is the bottom line.
This is the bottom line.
Can't touch it.
Okay.
If,
We've gone through this twice now with Bill, and he said he can't go any lower than this.
And. Sorry, and I see it in here that the playground repair, and I know that moved off because we got. Some awesome funding and PTO worked really hard to get the elementary school playground done.
No, that's out of there.
What do we have in here for maintenance of those structures,
Of the new playground,
of new playgrounds, of there's that existing
nothing.
elementary school playground back there that we don't want to see fall into the same category that happened to the one that got shut down, right?
Correct.
And I know last week I brought up, oh, let's put in for the athletics budget, athletic field maintenance, but I think we need to think about the same thing when it comes to these playgrounds, right? We're putting huge capital investment dollars into these new facilities and these new structures. What do we need to maintain them? Same thing with the culinary program, right? We're gonna have Department of Health inspecting that. What do we need to make sure that that program and those facilities are maintained in order that we don't have problems when we get to inspection times?
Upkeep budgets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even want to call them maintenance budgets. It's,
Bill,
just a little color on the previous point, Justin, before we even, now, not removed from this particular sheet. But there was just over $204,000 of reductions from the plant budget from Bill's original ask.
Mhm.
So it's work that Melinda and I shared, and it wasn't a fun task.
Mhm.
But where we went through this exercise and tried to pull out the things that, like the painting, that weren't absolutely crucial. So it just gives the board a little bit of a feel to the level of rigor that these numbers were subjected to before they made it into the budget spreadsheet.
but I think, sorry.
So it used to be $371,000.
This is one piece, this sheet
Right.
is one of 29 sheets that Bill submitted.
Right. But at some point it was over 300.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so at some point it was
Keep in mind,
300 and something thousand dollars.
Right.
And I think what's really important about that is we just heard that number, right? We just.
Yep.
And went, wow. There are 3 members of the Board of Finance. Two?
You have 2 online and 1 in.
Yeah, 3. So there are 3 members of the Board of Finance in the room that just heard that statement. And there's a total of, we'll round up 40 people in the entire town of Thompson that just heard that. I think it's important that we make sure that people know that this facility, that this board has done, when you got the budget this year, what was the number you got?
All in.
All
everything.
in, if you didn't change, if you didn't stick it all into, everybody got their way, what was that?
It was
Mm.
$2.1 million.
Okay,
Increase.
The increase was $2.1 million.
You gotta know where-
85.
885.
and
Right.
I think, and that's before anybody touched it but us,
So we've already
You-
cut one
you
point
two.
3 million.
us.
That's the first level of,
Right,
of
we've already,
reduction.
we went through and we have 1.3 million. Before it even goes to the town, so when the town said, well, you guys, padding the account, okay.
Well, I think that's another part of the process that needs to be explained.
Yeah.
Melinda and Bill go through the budget. They happily went through with a red pen, well, maybe not happily, I'll retract that part, but they went through with a red pen to cut out 1.3 million. It then goes to Board of Finance, who then takes a red Sharpie and goes through it.
Prior,
Sorry, Steve,
well, prior,
prior to it going to the town.
no, I'm
And then-
saying prior Board of Finance.
Right, so we already do 1.3, and then it goes to Board of Finance, and Board of Finance takes their Sharpie and they go a little bit further. And then it goes to the town, and then the town
That's it more.
takes, if
Big a red Sharpie.
And that's what's happened every year since I've been,
Take
Right.
some axe.
But I think part of, and I think part of that is just the message,
Right.
right? Nobody sees. The sauce, I'll use the term and I hate it, but the sausage making process, right? Nobody sees that it came from 2.1 and through countless hours of. You really need that. We really need that. What about that? And through countless hours, it gets down to under $1 million from 2.1 million. Before it even goes to the town. And that number doesn't get smaller from year to year, right? I assume that last year. 2.1, it was 1.9, right? I'm rounding, right? Let's say last year's, before we even started, was 1.9. This year's 2.1. Next year's gonna be 2.4, right? It happens. Nothing is, it's only gonna get more difficult. So I think part of our messaging this year needs to be explaining the process, especially the Board of Finance, who thankful for the 3 people who have sat in these meetings since day one. I know it's a long meeting and I know it kind of is a great way to kick off a Monday night, first night of the week. But to understand that we went from 2.1 million when the teachers and the granular level submitted this to 885,000 speaks volumes. And that a lot of what we really want to do, if people really wanted to say that we're spending wildly up here, yeah, we could spend wildly, but we're not spending wildly because we're working on shoestrings and bubble gum.
This is only worked out from the 3.
right, so. The time that I've been on the board 2 years, I guess, but, I've been coming to the meetings for a long, long time. And going to the Board of Finance in conjunction, and the Board of Ed does try to explain it, and I'm really hoping that the current Board of Finance is more receptive to not just saying, yes, this is great, but just listening. Before, I really don't think there was a whole lot of listening going on, and I really think I'm thinking the current Board of Finance will be more receptive to just an intelligent argument.
Any budgets that I've been doing this for 40 years, any budgets that go into the superintendent first are always inflated, right? And it is the superintendent's job, whether I was a director, and you go in, you advocate for your department, and then at the end of the day, the superintendent makes a decision to make those reductions, right? Based on the needs of the district. And I think that that's classic. I mean, the number is always larger to start with. And then when the superintendent brings it to the Board of Ed or school committee, it's reduced to a level that the superintendent feels is adequate or even more than adequate to run the district. In this case, where we started where we were, we dug deep into necessities because we're concerned that we put forward the $2.1 million increase, and some of our more critical things that we're trying to hang on to are also going to be reduced. I started off the budget presentation by saying that any staffing requests that came from the school were added either into the budget, or we are figuring out how to get those grant funded so that at least the staffing positions, we're hoping, all get restored. That was very important to us. When you get into the presentation, you'll see that I started to list all of the things from last year's budget, the $1 million that were reduced, how that impacted. And I think, Justin, that was a recommendation that you had made. How did that impact the students? And so we started to look at that today, really digging deep into last year's budget and what did we sacrifice last year just to balance the budget. And there were some critical positions there. The reading teacher at the middle school means 30 students are not getting intensive reading. That's unforgivable to those 30 students who need that reading support. The same that goes with the paras in the kindergarten, and many other of those positions that are listed there. They had a direct impact on our students.
Yeah, and I don't see it yet, and I've been flipping through it. No. of the 885,490, which makes up the 1.15 mill rate impact as calculated today, what of that is mandatory? Like contractual increases,
Oh.
fuel increases.
Have that sheet, but we didn't put numbers to it yet because this is still in draft form. But the budget highlights, is the budget drivers. The contractual salary increases, Bill is gonna, put numbers to that. The healthcare increase, the transportation increase, and electricity. Those are the big drivers on this budget that were fixed costs that we had no control over.
And I hope we can do not only percentages, but actual dollar values.
Or like a little pie chart
Like a
to
chart.
show literally, in total, 80% of our budget is fixed cost.
Right, 80% of the
only-
budget increase, 80% of that
Whatever.
885,000 is contractual increases, healthcare, transportation,
Fuel.
electricity, whatever,
Right.
whatever that is.
And then the other 20% are positions we lost that had direct impact and really can't do it again.
Or the other 20% is how we're trying to build our pathways program so we can attract
Athletics,
students here.
field trips.
So that our census goes up, so that our, I'm gonna say it, but I'm gonna hate myself for saying it, cost per student goes down.
To kind of piggyback off of that, when we reach out to the middle school schoolers, can we do a survey to the parents too, to see if they're looking to other school systems because of the budget stuff? 'Cause I've heard from a lot of people like, I don't want my kids' education to get mixed up because we can't get our act together and pass. the
I hear
budget.
that a lot.
So, like, we need to have that information going to the Board of Finance too, because we hear that we can't get our consensus up or get more kids, keep our kids, but parents are choosing to send their kids to somewhere else because there's not the budget drama. In high school, yeah.
They're not also recognizing the fact that by having us have to pay tuition to those students, for those students to go out there,
Well,
helping to,
true, but it being a state, Ellis being a state school.
right, that's
they have a
different,
state
right,
budget.
but like for those that
Willingly,
go and
they're,
we're paying tuition for
we're
that.
still paying tuition, but they
And
still
some
get the benefit,
transportation,
but they still get the benefit of going to Killingley.
right,
So we need to, I think that all of this is intertwined in some way, that we're still seeing students leave and what we're bringing in more stuff, but yet every year we're fighting and it's all over Facebook. This is getting cut, that's being cut. You need to go vote, you need to do it. And I think some parents might be feeling that their kids
I'm missing them.
are missing out, even though they really aren't, but yet they are. So it's like we're right walking this tightrope of keeping families in the district while, people that aren't in the district or people that aren't anymore are, accusing us of having this massive budget, but really we don't, because the parents in the district see it because we live it. But, how do we? Yeah.
And again, I think if we do that, even if we do it historically through the budget season, where did we start? We started at 2.1 million. Melinda and Bill took their pen to do a timeline slide, right? Melinda and Bill took their pen to it. They brought it to the Board of Finance at, I don't know, what was the first one, 1.2? First week,
1.3.
yeah, 1.3. They brought it to the Board of Education at 1.3. We refined it a little bit more. Bill sharpened his pencil a little more. We found the spots, and now it's sitting at 885,000. And we'll probably go to the Board of Finance with a little bit less or maybe a little bit more. I know we have the special education, that 100,000 there that we saw.
We put it in, it's in.
no, that's included in here already.
It's not in the 885.
It isn't?
No.
Oh, you said it was.
He wanted to bring this up for discussion tonight.
Oh, okay. I thought we put it in there.
I think
All right, well, what's the?
Sorry, let me.
Yep.
Just want to finish my thought. So I think a historical slide with some context
You did.
as to where we went this budget season is gonna be good to present at the town meeting. It's gonna be good to present to the Board of Finance, because although there are 3 people here who have heard us babble on for 3 hours for the last 3 Monday nights, there are people who want the Cliff Note versions, and I think that is a very important Cliff Note version. Is where it started, and the fact that you could have asked, and I hope that 2.1 included Bill's full 29-page list of. Facility ones.
No.
And all it included is, it included the 204 that was removed. Yes, but not the.
Not the full 5-year
I can
list.
I can just imagine what's on.
Oh,
Total
that's,
price of that
that's
list.
a.
If you were to
millions.
ballpark, I mean, how many millions of dollars do you think that would be? I mean,
I-
3, 4?
I'm just thinking labs alone are, costly, right?
Well, just in HVAC for the whole school, to upgrade the whole HVAC system was like 31, 32 million. To redo everything, full
Right.
new BMS, full new efficient everything, it was like 31, 32 million.
They scoped that project down to what, 14?
14.
Yeah, and but the 31 million included redo, like
Right.
gutting everything and redoing it. The 13 is the essentials to upgrade what we need now. And I know
Phase
that
one,
piece is
phase
gonna
one.
come up in budget season as well, right?
Yep.
If that grant comes through, what's that mill rate impact? What's the mill rate impact of the track? What's the mill rate impact of
And
the?
we were,
security?
we had those numbers available last year.
Yep. But I think what we can use to our advantage is this history that we started at 2.1, we got it down to 1.13 mil. And yes, you're gonna see mill rate increases from the HVAC if we get the grant. Yes, you're gonna see mill rate increases from the track and security, but they're still far less. And we know all this and we're taking all this into consideration for you, the taxpayer. And still trying to provide quality educations for those individuals in the town.
Okay, if we put the 100,000 back into this special education, because I'm still nervous about not having that in special ed. That brings us up to 985.
Correct.
Which then makes us a 4.8% increase. Still under 5%.
We are a skosh higher than we were when we started as a board discussing.
Yeah, was it 967?
975. Or 973.
967.
967.
We just left it.
Yes. 967. The number was burned in my head for a few days there.
Right, but I'm going by where we are now.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're correct. Yeah.
Right,
Yep.
985. 490, but I only do round numbers. It gives us a 4.8% increase. A 1.3 mil back to where we were. $1.287, so I round to 1.3.
The only other worry with that is if we add it in, then we have to make cuts if we know it's going to be gen ed immediately.
But
Yeah.
you don't make cuts. But the fact is, just because this year we had a decent year with special, with
Yeah,
so far,
right.
yeah, it makes me very nervous that we go in flat from year to year.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's a very volatile
Yeah,
segment every time,
yeah, so I'd rather put the 100,000 in there and go in with this, and yeah, we have to cut some, we know we're gonna have to cut
Well,
some.
I'm sure.
Can I add something?
You certainly may, Bill.
Thank you. We're only required to put in what we know at this time. We gotta stop playing games and we could add 400,000 back into special ed. And it might be enough, it might be too much. I think putting that $100,000 back in there is wrong. We should leave it the way it is right now. It's too volatile, we don't know. But all we need to do legally, morally, is to put in what we know at this time. And what we know at this time is we don't need that 100,000.
I agree with Bill.
I
Bill,
agree.
how have we handled the shortfalls in the past? I can't remember.
We always freeze the budget. We always steal from gen ed. Very rarely do we go back to the town and ask for money. But that's the law. They have to pick it up if we should go over.
And I
My
think,
problem with that is, yes, we can do that. We are legal, we're not legally bound to do that, but we continue to steal from Gen Ed because we don't have enough money in the special ed.
Kathleen,
And we continue to do that. And it isn't fair.
But then we don't go back and steal it out of Gen Ed. We go back to the town and say, we need this money. We're over in this. It's not as simple and easy as that. And I don't want to oversimplify, but we got to, I agree, stop taking from Gen Ed. Those are the kids that suffer all the time.
Right.
But we cannot, if the state and the federal government is not going to step up and fund special ed like they were supposed to, then they're going to have to, then we have to do what we have to do. I say, don't put the 100,000 back in. That's my opinion. I'm just one of 9.
Yes, Justin.
so I concur with Bill to not put the 100,000 back in. I think we have enough budget data at this point to say, look, we are staying within 0.5% of our line itemed budgets, except for this one space, because we got, and in special education, we can explain it. We got 5 kids from out of town that moved in, and look, every single other one of our line items, we're within 0.5% on. This is the one variable. We told you about this variable. Sorry, we're back to you.
And if the town doesn't fund it, then you take from.
But
So
you
they
can't-
have to.
the town has to.
The town.
The town has
Are
to.
we gonna do that though?
Yeah.
Cause that's what I'm
Yeah.
like, this happens every year. Right, and then we end up taking it from Gen Ed, you know what I mean? So like, if we make the decision to take the 100,000 out. We also have to make the decision that we are gonna do just that and ask the Board of Finance for the extra if it goes over.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with Bill, I agree with Heather. The problem is, does the town have the money? Where would the town get the money? Because
They have to go after the state.
can they do that? Is that how that works?
I
No.
don't think so.
That up until this point, no, they take it out of the general. fund.
Right, which is just as broke as we are.
Pretty much, yeah.
Then it's up to them to put pressure on on the groups
Yeah.
that are lobbying against this. I mean, some point
I
in time, it has to.
it's gotta be. I agree with you too, Tom. It's
Yeah.
just, but it hasn't happened yet, and it's
Just
frustrating on every
Well,
year.
the thing is that they're gonna come back and they're gonna cut this and we'll, and we'll probably have to take. It is. My opinion, I'm speaking, my opinion is that. Year after year after year, that the Board of Finance has groomed the town to think small in tax increases. Even when we've had revaluations that have allowed us to, to have no tax increases with raising the mill rate. They backed off the mill rate increases. And this type of mentality of half a mil is getting nowhere fast. And we're seeing it in the schools, we're seeing it in the general fund and in the town. The only thing that was good about the pandemic was we had a whole ton of money coming. That's the only thing good about that pandemic. Other than that, we'd be underwater. Our school would be falling down. We wouldn't have the facilities that we're building now, our salt shed and everything else. We wouldn't have these things. I mean, it's a horrible thing to say and horrible thing to have happened. But that's the only thing it provided for us was money. But we don't have it now.
Now we gotta do the upkeep.
But we've got a taxpayer base who doesn't want to see more than $500,000 increase. Yes, Justin.
So I think $100,000 when we talk about pupil services. Can equate to a drop in the bucket. It could be 1 student, it could be 2 students.
Yeah, that's true.
We could, like I said, 5 students at $80,000 worth of services could move into town, and we're going back to the town for money anymore. From my position, we're going back to the town for money. I'm never gonna advocate for taking money out of general studies to
Well,
move it over.
Unfortunately,
for that.
that's where we go to. We
But-
try to make it up.
And I think, but I think we're doing a lot of assuming
Mm,
on this board as to the direction of the town. We saw last year the referendum for the three pieces pass.
Yeah,
We saw an election with forward thinking
Mhm.
in November pass. I think we need to jump on to that momentum and say, look, we have done the absolute best we can do. And it's tight. The budget's tight. We're gonna stay within the numbers. Here's our variable. Our variable is always special education. And we're one boiler away from coming back to the town and asking you for money again.
yeah, well, it's the truth.
I mean, are we gonna put, if we're gonna put $100,000 in special education, then I think we should put $100,000 in the plant fund as well
Mhm.
for boiler. But half the town's gonna think that that doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
Cause, oh, you're storing my money for nothing. Okay, fine. So we're gonna come to you when we need it, when we need it. And I'm gonna take that same approach with special education. We're gonna come to you when we need it.
That's fine.
Because special ed and capital are the only two things that we can go to the town for,
Correct.
correct? So then at that point, I think we should just be budgeting for what we know we need to spend at this.
All right, that's fine then.
It-
think that- Okay,
And I think having three members of the board, historically, it's in my time, it's been one. Having three members of the Board of Finance here listening, doesn't guarantee us anything, but it does, like I said, it opens the door for an intelligent discussion and intelligent, hopefully listening and, but that it also, if we say, they're listening, right? If we say, oh, we're gonna keep this 100,000 in there, well, do you need it? We're not doing this in a vacuum, nor could we ever, and we're not, and we haven't been, but, so it's not in a vacuum, so
okay.
here we've taken it out, we shouldn't put it back in.
Our threshold to get reimbursement is 97,000, correct?
Yes.
So,
last time.
Except we lost money this year with that excess cost. We just found out last week.
Are you kidding me?
but
I thought we had talked about this in the last meeting,
Yeah.
but
Not the loss.
so we received approximately $182,000 in special ed excess cost reimbursement last year. The number that we saw was 2 weeks ago.
It's around 150, right?
It's just under 150. And I
So,
think it's a function of slight increase to the 97,000 and then a reduction of the reimbursement percentage.
so they did this a few years back where they upped the ante
Yeah.
and lowered the reimbursement.
Yeah,
They did it again.
Yeah.
With no,
It certainly appears that they did. I think Melinda, the email you forwarded around was from the superintendent's. group.
Well, so the argument with the superintendent is that the money was budgeted to increase that, and we're seeing, many districts are seeing a decrease, so superintendent association's pushing back on that.
but yet the requirements have increased.
So we have no recourse with the state at all, and it's really, really frustrating because they're supposed to represent. And not just us in Thompson, they're supposed to represent it, I'm sure every town is getting equally hosed.
Yeah. They are.
I think every town probably has had enough of this nonsense, and because they're supposed to be dealing with it, but they're not, and it's like.
The state can at least at this point say, look, we're helping.
Yeah, but yet the state has all this coffer of money.
Yeah.
And yet the towns are struggling. Amen. Thank you very much.
Well, because in the mandate.
But that's what I'm saying. But how can the state continually say that? We're, we have no deficit, we're above and beyond where we're supposed to be. Yeah, it's at the expense of all of us.
well, they do.
Totally ridiculous.
Right, your congressman?
Yes, they
Right?
just- They just opened, it's like February 7th, they're opening the things that you
Legislation.
want to see, get passed, so you need to start lobbying and be there and.
Yep.
Kathleen.
Mhm.
You've been finance director.
I've actually been here, believe it or not, it's only been a year and a half.
Third
Wow.
budget. Second or like second or third budget season? How? If we were to go back to FY 23. And I'm just spitballing this from a historical presentation perspective. Budget accuracy from 23 to 24. 22 to 23, 23 to 24. Is that something we could do?
So yeah, I think in previous years. I mean, we're close. We were in the black largely previously, but not by a heck of a lot.
But Bill,
This year we were, and these are unaudited numbers, these are draft, they can change. I want to say we were around $60,000 in the red, which is still below the thresholds. But unfortunately, it was in the red. That's still draft.
but Justin,
Last year, it was 250-ish.
just keep in
And
mind
it
though. the
could have
way
been
that
more.
the house has been built,
Yep.
These are now more cost center based, where before it was kind of.
No, and what I'm getting at here is from an object code perspective, if we were to take budget accuracy year over year. Which ones are the bigger variables? And I think my assumption is correct. Our bigger variables are in capital, building, maintenance type things and special education. Those we would see,
Transportation was in there for a long time. Until we got it.
And I would
budgeted.
say staffing would probably figure in there because, well, I guess that would probably flow into people services. because
Sorry, healthcare.
A large amount of the heads that are added during the year are IEP
Yeah,
driven.
that's true.
And,
statement.
and going back to your mandatory, there's not a choice there. If it's an IEP and there's a one-on-one needed, then it's an addition.
even if we were to take this first page and say budget accuracy on the first page. What does that look like for the last 3 years? I think we're gonna see clearly that that is in plant and people services, I think is where we're gonna see. The
Yeah.
largest amount of variable.
Yep.
And I think that justifies my earlier statement, which is we go to the Board of Finance with the tightest budget we have. And we don't say, yeah, we've got 100,000 extra in there for pupil services in case. We say, no, this is what we spent this year, and hey, by the way, these are the 2 spots we might come back to you next year. Because if a boiler goes, we're one of them,
And we did.
We did this year.
just as if two $91,000 special ed students move into town.
So are you looking for kind of like a 5 years on just those 2 accounts?
No, I'm looking for, if we were to take this page and we were to be able to extend out and say, look, in the high school. Our budgeted was 1 million, we spent 1 million. Our budgeted was 1.2 million, we spent 1.2 million. But in pupil services, you're gonna see we budget 1 million, and we end up 1.5. We budget 1 million, we end up 1.2.
Oh, yeah. you
Budget
see
million,
that
we-
almost every year
Right.
except for this year.
Right, but if we put that on paper and it's more work for Bill.
No, and I'm not trying to. It's not busy work, because I think it's important for when we sit in front of the Board of Finance and the town to say, listen. We're doing what we said we were gonna do. We told you we were gonna hold this budget. We held the budget on everything that we could. Everything that we could control, we controlled, and even the stuff we couldn't control, we controlled it as best we could. But there's
So
only
we-
so much bubble gum and duct tape.
So even if Melinda freezes the budget,
Mhm.
these 2 accounts basically are
Correct.
unfrozen. That's what you just.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can't
it's not-
freeze special ed.
They're the
So
variables.
it's probably not, I mean, it's a nice approach.
They're the fixed variables that I think the Board of Finance and the town needs to understand that. If $91,000 special ed students,
97.
97, right, move into town, that's $1 million.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We're not gonna pad this budget by $1 million.
No, we're not. And you can't freeze that area and you can't freeze plant because we lost a water heater last year.
I think we put a slide out, I mean, not
2.
now.
Yeah,
At
but
some
we-
point, there should be a slide on.
Mhm.
Well, I think Justin asked for that, right? That
Yeah,
timeline.
well, that's time,
Well,
is
the
one of them,
timeline
asking for
usually
last.
looks like he's asking for something that showed how tight we are
But I got that.
in all the other departments with the exceptions of the ones that we have, and this is why we're budgeting for why
That's
we're
because we
what
run
we
from
currently
them
know,
to pay.
because
for
there's no
the
way to
other ones.
budget for those other
But
things.
we can't do that anymore. We refuse to do that.
Done.
And we,
The problem is that the budgets that are left under Gen Ed are really are at the bare minimum. So they have to be spent
Mhm.
because we need crayons and glue and those
And they've,
basic things.
and they've been running within, I mean, I'd love to say within 0.5% of their budgeted number. They've been running within 0.5% of their budgeted number for the last 5 years. If we
Probably
can,
have.
yeah, and if we can say that, we've done our job, right? We can prove to the town, we can prove to the Board of Finance that, look, we're putting together a budget to the best of our ability, and we are following that budget for the last 5 years. The two variables that we cannot control are plant and special education. And we're telling you right now, plant and special education
Gonna be over.
gonna be over. We might have to come to you. Or we might not.
And it might give, to piggyback off that, a little pressure from our town to reach out to legislatures, like on the town side, if they're like, all right, another year they're coming to us for special ed costs, like, just more
Well,
people, other than the Board of Ed.
but I think you
emailing
also,
and-
I think we call out what
Yeah.
Bill just said.
Yeah.
The gap just widened because they upped the ante and cut the funding.
Right, and if we keep coming to the town and it's known that we're coming to the town year after year for said costs.
Yep.
The town needs to get involved and the townspeople need to know too that this. Is not a Board of Ed, I mean, it is a Board of Ed cost, but it's actually a town cost, because of this, the way the state mandate's written, when special ed goes up. For years and years and years, we've taken the cost, we're just not doing it anymore, because we can't take from general ed. So if they're upset about our budget going up, you reach out to the senators yourself and your state reps,
Yeah,
because
absolutely right.
this is why it's going up.
Well, I think Bill and I have agreed that if special ed runs over this year, we'll come to the Board of Ed, ask your permission to inform the Board of Finance that we're over in that special education line as soon as we know we're gonna be over in that special ed line. Right now, we've got a little buffer there, not much in that department. But you are right, Justin. 2 kids could move in tomorrow and then we're toast in that department.
So, Kathleen,
Mhm.
let's ask Bill one question.
Of course.
We originally had what number for special ed until you just found out this new ratio, right? Like, what was the variance in the new? You were planning on what coming
I,
down?
I had planned on,
180.
they had been trending flat to down, so I had planned on 180.
All right, they cut us by 30.
About 30,000. Was a 149 and change, I think was the amount. used.
Yep.
Which was, that just,
It is.
it's funny, we're talking about some big numbers here, but that $30,000 really
like
stunk.
so-
Well, it's just another, well, it's another scenario where make it work.
Right.
And we've made it work year after year
It's
after
not
year at the
Yeah.
expense.
Yeah,
Well, at the expense of other
the
situations.
state system is broken and we're paying the price.
right,
$30,000, the middle school athletic coaches' salaries.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Co-op.
right,
Co-op
the
funding.
high school co-op, high school program. Football program. I mean,
Repainting of lockers, I mean,
Yeah.
you name it.
we
Boom, 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 boom.
we gotta stop just because the state decides to.
No, it's right. On the special education funding part, I know that there was supposed to be like some sort of tiered system. That they were supposed to be using additional funds to adjust, because that was the response I got from all the lovely letters I wrote. Was there any additional receipt for us for those, for as the second tier?
As far as I know, that the number that was shared was the funding that we're receiving.
Now, people are all up in arms about it
Yeah.
because they're
Cause
not,
there were at least 12 different pieces of legislation last year that were up in regards to special education
Right.
funding.
right
And of
now
course, none of them went
very far.
right.
Are the rules made by the State Department of Education or are they made by the state legislature? That's what I thought. Okay.
Try to get a hold of our state rep, Rick Hayes.
But
Good luck.
He's not running.
No, at least the
Good.
state senator, she.
Just found that out.
Yes,
So there's, I think it's a threefold problem, right? We have. The mandates of what special education is and what services need to be provided at what levels. That's number one.
Mhm.
Number two is the threshold in which we get reimbursed went up to 97.1.
Cause it's 4 times what.
Four
our
and a
per
half
pu-
times.
4.5 times our per pupil expenditure. So we get essentially railed on both ends
Right, because our census.
because our census is low and.
But then on top of that, the percentage of reimbursement
right,
after that.
that I
Yeah.
don't know, that changes every year.
went down, right, this year?
My understanding is it went down.
Yeah.
Don't quote me, but I maybe in my head, I'm just doing the math, because it's the only way it goes
It's
down.
the only way it goes. Hey,
Especially to, Owen mentioned earlier, the level of funding that went into the program was higher.
Well,
That's, I think, what really has people.
Yeah,
kicked up.
people are all up in arms about that.
and I think, you know. My own personal experience in special education. We could have 10 students who are just getting reading services at $10,000 in cost. And that adds up quickly, and I know it's not just that, right? So that gets zero reimbursement from the state.
Right.
So,
Anything under 97?
correct, remember that your last board report, you had 18 students for out of district tuition. But we have up over 200 students that receive specialized services. And with that comes special education teachers, therapists, reading specialists, you name it. Contracted services for IVTs and BCBAs. I mean, there's a host of expenses to make sure that our students that stay here in our schools have access to the gen ed curriculum with the appropriate supports. That comes with a price tag. That we all hyper focus on the out of district because it's a big number, but contracted services is a big number too.
And out of the 200 students, there's probably 15 that maybe get us to that 97.1, the 4 times the per student cost.
It's mostly the out of district.
It's only the ones that are out of.
Is Chris on, is Chris on the thing?
No,
No, but it's the out of district,
It's like.
Yeah, those are the ones that.
we don't even have.
And I'm not singling that out, but all we need is 2 of those.
Right.
right.
Right. And again, lobbying the state, lobbying our state senators, lobbying all that. That all being said, that's not gonna change. We can't guess for that in
Right.
our budget.
Or, how fair is it to any town that a pupil service budget is more than a whole school?
Right.
Like, look at our school budget, like our high school budget is 2,741. So for our pupil budget, or wait, I'm reading the wrong one. But anyway, say
You understand?
$2.5 million for, and then your pupil budget's
1.2 million
It's-
for
yeah.
out of district.
right. But what
um,
I'm saying is just like that one part of our budget is more than a whole school. So we
almost.
need to,
If
like-
you add transportation to
Right,
that, yeah,
that's
it's almost
mandated
equal to a
costs.
school, yes.
So, like, I think that really needs to, like, I don't know how we can have that highlighted more, that the cost to run special education costs more than a whole school.
And it's
With
our
all of its, staff and programs and,
Oh, well, you
So-
can easily go look at that. Pupil
Right, right.
services is 4.8 million.
right, exactly.
More
But
than
to,
any of the schools.
right, but to like put that into perspective, that this
if
is the
you're
cost
just-
that we
even
have that
just-
is mandated on us by the state of Connecticut.
Well, even if you look just at the out of district placement at 1.2.
Right.
And the transportation
Right.
added to that, and that includes the Bradley students who don't need
Right.
Right.
transportation. What's the transportation?
1.2 million. For
Well, 1.2 million is the,
That's not transportation. Sorry.
no, that's just the tuition. The transportation is 750, so it's $2 million.
for the out of district.
just for the out of district.
Right.
That includes the
Eight kids.
students in Bradley who don't count
Yeah,
the
yeah,
transportation.
Right. So eight students,
Nor do they count the reimbursement,
right.
No, oh God, they don't even come close.
Right.
And
Right.
some of the out of district. do.
but it is cost savings, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful program that we've got, but
You know, if you.
the state should
say-
fund it if it's special
Well,
ed.
and I think if the state model changed to say, you know, $500,000. Anything over $500,000, state will reimburse, right? That's something you can budget, for,
Right.
right? State, you could then say, and we're not gonna dictate legislature here,
Well,
but
if the state had
Well-
done what they said promised to do when they closed Mansfield and closed all the group homes. And then put the special ed onto the schools. Our budget would be $4.8 million less than it is now.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of mill rate. So get on the
know-
phone, get on your email and. Tell
Again,
the state.
I think the approach that Justin was on, where we have those two accounts,
Mhm.
right, that are very volatile. I think in addition to that, if we had another slide at some point, I think Heather's probably on to this right now. What is, where would we have been? If these programs were not in place, Bradley, all these others, our budget would probably be, rather than 21 million. Probably be like 24, 30. Right, so again, we are looking at this in a very fiscally responsible manner
Right,
with programs in-house.
Right.
That have reduced the expense by X.
but we can't do any more and the costs are going up, so this is now going back to the town.
Right,
And we
but
need
we
to-
are looking out for
Right, and
taxpayers. We're all
we've done the
taxpayers.
most that we can at this point.
We've done this every year, though. We've told them we don't.
Gotta do it again.
$4 or $5 million between the Bradley program, the transition.
Gotta do it every year.
I know, we gotta bang it home.
Why don't we
every year,
leave,
but-
you know, the senator's information and one of the slide, we
But-
encourage you to reach out.
but I think
Support
making
it.
sure that the Board of Finance. Been in town for 6 years now and have paid attention to budget season for that long. Making sure that the townspeople and the Board of Finance are aware that there are two volatile pieces in our budget that we can't control. Everything else we're within 0.5% on, but sorry, these are the two line items we can't control. Our budget's tight. Show me any other municipal budget that's as tight as we are.
I've never experienced one.
Even in the worst of years where we've had to shuffle. Still and make it work, right? I
There's so
think,
many moving parts.
yeah, and I know Bill's very busy and I hope he can pull together. To some extent that accuracy from year to year, because I would be curious.
It would be interesting.
I mean, I'll pull the data if you've got the numbers. I'll crunch it. You can email it to me and I'll be more than happy to crunch it. But, from what I've seen, I think the budget accuracy is right on, except for those two areas.
Okay.
I think we need to highlight it.
So I know Kathleen's flipping through the presentation, but the beginning of the presentation is exactly what we put forward. I guess many previous presentations, who's on the board, what's the duties of the Board of Ed, our portrait of a graduate,
Start on page 5.
right.
And this is where we get into the benefits of the town and the Board of Ed collaboration. There's the budget history, how much they cut us. No, that's not it. The percent change of the budget versus the rate of inflation. We brought that in last year.
Yep.
As to, at Jess's, suggestion. So, last year we did. Are you sure that's right?
I don't think that's right.
Well, anyway, I'm not gonna argue.
The percent change from 22 to 23.
Yeah.
Or 23 to
Oh, that's
24.
the wage increase.
Yeah,
I have inflation rate at 3.4%. For the end of 2023. Oh, when are you taking the rate of inflation at
So-
the end of June?
They're actually calendar year, they're from the Fed Reserve. They're a little different than the numbers that were in there last year, but I was able to get them all except for 24 and 25 from the same source. And they were similar to where they were last year, so I updated them.
Oh, okay, because I went out online and where did I get that? Forbes. I got an estimate of 3.4% for inflation.
For 24,
December
was Forbes?
31st. Of 2023.
2023 or 24.
Yeah, well, this is,
23.
oh, an estimate. Oh, you're using an estimate for 24. Okay, I didn't do that. Okay.
Can we step
No,
back to
that's
slide,
probably right.
we step back to slide 9?
Yep.
HR and fuel. 2 items we need to add to that one,
Oh, I forgot the HR person.
and that whole fuel, energy.
Yeah, like commodities, whatever, all the
Yeah.
utility stuff.
And then, my only other comment would be in the first column for town, use of facility without use of facilities, building and grounds, custodial costs, right? It's not just the buildings, they use the grounds as well, regular basis, so.
Which slide is that?
9, but like rec, baseball.
Right.
I mean, well, baseball used Little League, but
Yeah,
Rec
I know what you're
sports.
saying.
The playground when we have one. For
the
Building
liability
ground
falls on
and
us.
their college.
Jess, how far away are we from getting that?
Well, I'm currently waiting for clarification from the state on when the bond/grant is available. Because I currently have 45 grand liquid in the PTO account. There's the 10,300 that Melinda had scored for the repairs that we were gonna put towards the new playground, because we're closer to that than doing the repairs. So that's 50, we'll call it 55 for easy math. I have 5 grand pending from a second half from Bank Hometown, so there's 60. I've got 2,500 coming in from Centerville. So there's 62.5, 80 grand from the state, that's 142. And then one of our playground subcommittee members was working with Spiral, and their grants, if they provide one, is usually around 5. I have somebody else who's willing to, they were waiting for the end of this year's financials to make a contribution, so there could be more money there. We currently have a movie night coming up February 9th. It's $5 a head with concessions to be sold at intermission, so I would gladly appreciate to see any of you promote our movie night. Then we have Cindy's at the end of February, so come give me all your tip money. And then we've got a fun run coming in April. We're switching to a different program, so that way we can not have the fees from the other one, even though we raised enough to make the fees extremely nominal. We're trying to go with no fees this year. So it's a slimmed down program, so no prizes and all of that. So we'll get to keep more of that. And I've budgeted about 15 grand to come in for that. And then Penny Wars is happening as well. And then flowers for Memorial Day, Mother's Day. So I'm guessing will probably be about 260 by the end of this school year. 160 by the end of the school year, which we originally budgeted 150. However, there was increase in costs like everything else for everything. So we're probably going to be right at that 160 number. Building committee, Mr. Santos and Poplawski, we're going to talk to the track company to see if we can do like a scale of service and have them do the groundwork, because having it done through the playground company is stupid expensive. We've been working with some local contractors, but we want to see if the track company will give us a bit of a discount, since they're already going to be up here and they're not really doing a whole lot in that area that we need them to do. So we're working on that. We had looked at doing the poured rubber, because that's what Senator Flexer would have preferred. However, that made our project go from 150 to 295. However, with poured rubber, you're looking at least a 10-year lifespan, so you're not filling it in with wood chips every 2 years, so.
Oh.
Well.
Pick up the difference.
So that, when we had
Oh, wait a minute, that's right.
contact.
Funding went down.
Right, so when we had originally contacted her for the funding on the playground. We had put in for the full project and we were gonna take, if we were able to get the full project, we were gonna take the amount we had fundraised to put towards the repairs.
Right.
So that way the kids had 2 playground spaces, you could spread them out, there was room for middle school students, elementary students at the same time, they didn't have to mix. However, when she submitted that project to the governor said, because she also had a project for Killingly. She either had to pick one or she had to come down on her numbers for both projects, and in order to essentially spread the wealth. Both project numbers had to come down, and that's how we got that 80 grand.
Our project was not in Fairfield, so.
Well, our project was,
No, it's
Yeah.
Thompson versus Fairfield.
yeah,
Once again, we had to share with Killing.
Right.
Seeing a common theme to
right, we had to share accordingly. Plus there was the fact that, part of that was that $500,000 for the track, like the state's pushed some money in our direction already, so I'm happy that we got the 80 grand. I'm not going to,
Yep.
be upset about that. But that was one of the things that we looked for in that project was what are some ways to, keep the maintenance low, and a poured rubber base would be better for that. However, thinking about it in the long run, if we were to do the repairs on that lower playground, there's groundwork that eventually has to be done there anyway. So if we were to put in that rubber base now, that would all have to be dug up.
Right.
And I'm not paying for it twice. I cannot do another fundraising extravaganza like I've done a second time around. Like, my ladies are tired, I'm tired.
What is the, what's the end goal? Like, what's the timing?
Our
Is this for the
timing is to
fall?
have it done at the same time as the track and have it ready for August. That is our goal. However, depending on how long it takes to get the money released from the state, that may push us back. Unless I can con Board of Finance to let us have 80 grand ahead of time and I can get it
So
done.
80 grand is what's coming from the state.
80 grand is what's coming from the state. The rest of it has all been fundraised through our creative fundraising channels, as some people like to call it.
There's no deviation off of that 80,000. They're not gonna short you 67.
No. My numbers are solid.
Just so we had
So is it reimbursement?
Yeah, so that is,
Kudos to you guys for
that
raising
80
much
grand
money.
is solid. That was the discussion that I had with the community investment fund, because that's where that money's coming from the
Oh,
government.
kudos to what you guys did for fundraising. That's great.
We're expecting to do this in phases over like multiple years, so to be able to nail it all out in
Can't wait to see what you do at project graduation.
8th grader this coming year, so trust me, we're already gotten the plans going for that.
Okay, let's get back to the
That's
budget now. I'm on page 12, the budget, I love the tiger stripes, that's cute.
As I told Danielle, we had to go with some tiger pride. So.
The budget drivers, you're gonna put numbers on that.
Yeah.
Overall contributions to the budget,
Yeah, we just have to put the right numbers in.
right? You can't have those dark colors or they won't show.
Correct.
Special education,
So we were gonna ask Chris to update this, but we had that discussion around special ed, and I don't know if it should look entirely different.
well, he's got it laid out for the transition program pretty well.
Right,
This is what we'd have to spend without it, and here's what we're spending with it, so. That's over $100,000 savings there.
Can I asked, do we know how many transition students we're gonna have for next year?
so. So that's a little bit of a long story, but right now there's currently one student in transition. But his out-of-district tuition costs would be more than it costs us right now to pay for a para and a teacher. However, we don't have a life skills teacher, so Katie Butler, who is the transition teacher for the high school, is teaching life skills, and we've collapsed those two classes into one. We
Okay,
have hired someone, but she can't come to us until the end of March. And once that happens, Katie will transition back to her transition program. And there is talk of some of the students that are currently in life skills will segue to transition, and they may move some a little earlier. So there's been some discussion around that.
all right, so
But
we
I
have
don't have a solid number, but I can get.
more than just, but we have more likely the potential of more than just the one that's currently in there
Correct.
now. Coming,
Correct.
okay, because in the enrollment reports, it looks like we only have one,
We do currently on the books, there's one
Right,
kid,
but-
one child in
but
transition.
for going forward. Okay,
But when you think about that,
right,
it still would cost us
Just
more
more
to
to
send
send them
that
out,
not in
right.
district.
So I think,
The optics of it's not great.
I think on the special education cost slide, I think we need to. The excess cost grant, we
Mhm.
need to get something in there on the excess cost grant. We also need to get something in there as to, if possible, and if it's not legally possible, that's fine, but 200 out of 893 students. Receive special education services. Right, a third of our, or quarter of our overall student population receives special education services, so the money that's going in, and they receive general education services as well. But those students are also getting special education services. I think it's great that the Bradley program is the highlight of this slide, but. It's not the full driver
That's right.
of the $4 million that goes towards people services.
Yep.
Yeah, we want percent of all our students, yeah. Which we are pretty high compared to the state average.
Kathleen, we have some.
I think Danielle was first and then, also if we could, that, in previous presentations, Chris has always had that great slide where it explains that the, special ed federal and state mandated costs.
Free and appropriate
Yes.
education in the
So
least
we can
restricted
have-
environment.
That's put in there that it is a state and federal mandated cost.
Remember last year, we tried to slim down this presentation.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, we're going in the other direction.
Yes,
Not
right.
that
Yes.
I have any objection to
Right.
it or,
Or even if
But-
this one was on the
Agree.
website per se, if the school website, if somebody was to look through the budget presentation, maybe we have one for finance that knows this information versus the one that goes on the website. Where public can look at.
Yeah, that's a good
Yes,
idea.
yes.
Now who do I go to?
So I just have a question. I'm gonna back up to slide 12, just real quick. Is there a possibility, and I mean, obviously, we know what these terminologies mean, but is there any way to put more of a layman's terminology to the pie chart? So town allocation, maybe say taxpayer contribution, and then educational cost share, maybe say state, whatever.
Yeah.
Just because if I wasn't in the Board of Ed, I don't know that I would
Yeah.
understand what those
Okay.
terminologies
Good
are.
idea. Excellent.
That makes it more
and
clear,
then special ed reimbursement.
right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
I got it.
Yep. Very good,
Kathleen?
very good. Okay, anybody else before? Yes.
On that, for like the town allocation side, because technically, we only get like, what is it, 11, 12 million from actual taxes raised, and the rest of it comes from state and federal allocation,
Okay.
and that should be denoted, I think.
We'll put that in, like
Okay.
we usually do.
All right, and then on the whole percentage of special education students, because we see a dump truckload of pushback on that. Why is our percentage so high? Are we over assessing? Are we over diagnosing? Just because we live on, Putnam has just as many special ed students and they spend less than we do. The whole gamut, what we see, so we need like solid information to explain that percentage.
And we don't necessarily have to put that in the
Right.
slide. We have to be able to.
But that's
answer.
like
Explain.
the backup documentation
Right.
that needs to be provided.
Context that supports the
Yeah.
values.
Some of that is difficult to explain because based on the disability and needs of a student, You know.
That's the explanation.
Well, it can also. And we see this in national studies all the time. It also bases into the demographics of the community,
Oh, definitely.
right? And the poverty level within the community. And we understand that we are of a higher poverty level in Thompson than they are in Putnam.
Not necessarily.
Not by much, but
No,
it
I
is.
think
I
we're
think
pretty
that- I
much
think
on
they're-
an even keel there. It's
They-
just
they
the
have
needs of the students.
It's our students, and so their poverty rates are tad high.
One thing though that you've mentioned before is that because we are a border town to two states, we do get a lot of transient
We have a lot.
Rhode Island or Massachusetts folks that Putnam wouldn't necessarily see as easily as we do.
Right.
Because of that just geographic location.
And understanding that that could be a renter
Mhm,
or a homeowner,
right,
but. I guess where I'm going with this is
The
the tax
taxes
dollars don't
don't
come in.
change.
Don't change either way.
Correct.
And Putnam has a tax base that's different than we do. I mean, they have business, lots of business. I mean, they got a Walmart, so, you know.
right,
like,
that's
you
just
can't
one of
even
the ones that
have
got
foreigners.
threw out at us last year
Yeah.
was.
Well, and we could go down to the fact that there's a fire tax district in
Yeah.
East Putnam.
Yeah.
Right, which is I think it's 2.1. So add that to their mill rate, right? And a lot of people don't think of
Yeah,
this,
they don't.
because you get the mill rate at 27. And then they pay a fire tax on top of that at 2 point something.
Oh, and they pay a city tax too. If you
Well, the city,
In the special services.
in the special
district,
services district, pays-
Trash and
Right.
other
They
things.
pay for their trash.
so when you add all those things up, 27 ain't that bad. Because it's just 27. It's not 27 plus 2 plus
Mhm.
X plus Y plus Z. So, but I think, like Jess said, we have to do something. And I understand that we don't want to drag this presentation on all night, but I think highlighting the largest point of our budget and the most volatile point of our budget is very important as we present to the county and the board.
And people don't want to listen to it. It's,
No.
it's important information, and, you know, I don't think, even if we add 2 more slides. As long as they're important and relevant slides, still condense the information. If it adds up 3 minutes to a presentation, then, you know. It's 2/3 of the town budget, or
Yeah.
3/4 of the town budget. If you can't pay attention to the $20 million presentation, then that's not our, or our fault. It's not our fault.
Slide 12. And I don't know how everybody else feels about this, but. The grant pieces of it, not just the excess cost grant, but the grant pieces of it. And then a little, it doesn't have to be on the slide, but some backup context to that, saying, countless hours are spent. Not only looking for the grants, but applying for the grants and making sure that we have things in place to qualify for the grants. And we're doing that level of work, or your taxes would be X amount of dollars higher.
Yeah, don't minimize that.
No,
No,
We,
Sure.
the 9 of us, know how hard your team works on that. Or think we know how hard your team works on that. And so the other 10,000 people in town need to know that X many thousands or millions of dollars are coming from grants that you guys have busted yourselves on.
and it's grants that, it's not just we applied for the grant, we're done. It's grants that require regular maintenance of, and this is all stuff I'm saying to add to the context.
Even those grants that we get, the title grants, you get an allocation, but you have to program and actually implement whatever it is you say you're going to do to get those dollars.
It's not just a here's the money, okay, see you later. It's a here's the money, now what are you doing?
The execution.
and it's grants that you yourself are applying for, that the teachers, the staff, the
Oh,
administration is applying. We don't have a grant writer, which we certainly could use. I know it costs money, but hey, can you imagine if we could hire?
Oh, that's one I forgot on the town side. We use Tira a lot for.
But if we had a dedicated grant person,
They're paid themselves.
yeah. over
Free up
and
your
over.
time.
We had two dedicated grant writers in the past, and they did not work out for the tour at all.
Sorry, Bill, what was that?
Yeah, we
We
can't.
had two dedicated grant writers for the school in the past, and
Uh-huh.
neither one of them worked out.
Yeah,
But that's not to say that a new person wouldn't work out.
it's cost benefit ratio, I think, at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
But I think that's important to make sure that pie. That
Shows that some of that's coming from that too,
I see what
Right.
you're saying.
because otherwise it looks like the bulk of this is coming from town allocation.
town allocation, and it's not.
And it's, yeah,
What else did we cut last year? We had to cut more.
And
than
then,
just,
sorry,
Yeah, I had the list I got on the,
Melinda.
Yeah.
Sorry, just one more on slide 12, on that excess cost grant, if we can put like a footnote on that to say, refer to special education slide. Where we're gonna explain that, because people are gonna see excess cost grant, and they're gonna go, oh my god, there's excess cost.
We changed it to special education reimbursement.
Yeah, I don't, whatever we wanna call it, that's
Yeah,
fine, but
yeah,
but a
that's
place to
fine.
explain it, I think is what I'm getting at,
I see what you're
to
saying.
understand that that, you know,
oh, okay, it's on two.
$4.6 million is spent on special education, we get reimbursed a bunch of the pie on it.
Okay, I see, we have this.
It's almost like its own slide.
this was the list of the highlights from our cut. It was eliminating 2 kindergarten
She's got it
paraprofessionals.
on two
Oh, she-
slides.
Yeah, but it's more than what I think is listed is.
Oh,
But
okay.
remember, we restored some things through grants.
Okay. Oh, right, okay.
right,
So I try to pull out from the original sheet that Bill gave me today. Those that were. Like, these are the ones I know off the top of my head.
You wanna send them that.
There's a lot of staffing,
Hmm,
Chromebooks. Library books, field trips. We did eliminate the late bus, but I flipped it on
we put that back in.
Alliance. We did eliminate the library media specialist, but I flipped it on Alliance.
Could we add that
So-
in to kind of piggyback?
right,
because
because this is the pushback we get from the community, is we say we're cutting these things.
Mhm.
And then
They see them.
they see them magically restored. So if we are going to have a meeting and say, we're cutting this, and this. And then 6 weeks later, we now found a grant for it, we need to be like. Or if we're putting it into Alliance, what we lose that we could have spent that Alliance money on instead that may have had an impact on other students? Cause then that's what we lost,
Well, this year,
right?
this year was, we didn't have to buy anything for culinary.
Right.
That's where that money came from.
Right.
Well, so that brings up a good point, right? We couldn't stand up another pathway because we had to put money over here. We couldn't make our system more attractive because we had to make it work over here,
Right.
right? We can't do a football program for 3 students because we had to make it work over here.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not gonna resonate.
No, but to
Right.
to some people who want athletics and sports, it might.
Right.
Why are you cutting sports? I mean, when middle school sports were gonna be cut
Oh,
2 years ago,
Um,
the town near exploded.
Well,
Right.
it did, yes, but that was a whole school versus 3 students.
But we've seen that this town is hard up on athletics and making sure our students are well centered in the physical sports world, right? They funded a track on a referendum, on its individual
By 9
referendum,
votes.
out of, doesn't matter if it was by 3 votes or if it was by
That's a
20
nail
votes.
biter.
Right.
But
It
I
was
know,
done.
no, I'm agreeing with you, I'm agreeing.
And it was ungrant funded at the time.
Yes. Yep. They did.
So we have a town that's behind us, and I think we're showing that we're doing our fiscal responsibility as important. But to Jess's point, we need to make sure that if we robbed Peter to pay Paul, that we showed it.
We do it every year.
Every
Like
year.
Alliance grant money could be used for helping to better increase attendance, but we couldn't because we had to do X with it. Although it's within the rules, we had to do X with it.
Right.
And the type of folks too that were that don't like to see increases or anything, they're looking through this list and they're saying, well, when I went to school, there was no such thing as a paraeducator. They don't need those anyway, you know what I mean? So it's like, they don't understand, when they're seeing the one, they're gonna be able, they're gonna look at our increase request for this year and be like, well, if this is what they got rid of for $1 million, well, we didn't need any of that when I was in school, so they don't need any, you know, and this is the crazy thing in that they're.
Come to kindergarten.
Yeah, and this is this is what they're saying though, but when I was in
get it.
school, so.
You also
them,
can't
these
slap
costs-
students anymore.
Yeah, so then,
Well, there's some states you still can.
right, so for them,
Yeah.
you know, so to add back in what you had, you know, would just make it look. Well, I get it. Oh, well, I get it 100%. I'm
Right.
just, I'm being devil's, yeah, they just aren't paying
Right.
attention. I'm just being, you know, what they're gonna say. They're gonna look at, well, when I went to school, I was rocking up 5 miles uphill both ways.
With
you know,
blender
like-
bag,
Yeah.
bread bags on your bed.
Right.
Just.
In regards to the Alliance funding, because we've sat through several meetings and the state loves what we're doing. When is our next review of that? And I don't want to say that like we're in,
We're gonna lose it.
right, because we're making the progress that we need to, but we've been using those funds to shore up stuff for so long. The floor is gonna come out of that at some point, and we need to be prepared for it, and the town people need to be prepared for it. So when is that kind of review coming, and when can we expect to probably see some of the repercussion of that?
Well, so you have one more year after this year by legislation, right, to get that 200 grand. We stretched those dollars really far. So we've got salaries on there, we had culinary on there, prior to that, we had the shop work put down on Alliance. And that was to reduce graduation rate. You just can't nilly-willy decide a project. It
Right,
has to be tied into one of the variables.
like attendance,
that-
graduation,
correct.
testing scores.
So reduction of improvement of a high school graduation rate is always good. That's one of the variables, and we hang our hat on that for construction, but that all has to get approved. So it's not like we can put it in and say that's gonna happen.
Right,
So this year on Alliance is the student support coordinator, the library media specialist to increase independent reading, the Navient software, and then there was something, I think, left over. Oh, no, welding. For the welding program, we're buying a couple of booths out of Alliance. We're buying a booth out of Perkins, and then the electric boat is sponsoring the rest. We just had a meeting last week on that. So, I mean, we're cobbling together multiple funding sources to make anything happen these days. I think, I think that's why Congressman Courtney found that fairly remarkable, that we were able to even find multiple pots of money that weren't BOE money to make those things happen. But you are right, because technically, we could be using that money for more after-school tutoring. There's a sacrifice to some of that. And it's kind of a give and take. What's more important at this moment in time? But after next year, we have to lobby May Flexer again and Senator Gordon to have them push through that 200,000, because we are not in the original pot, and Bill Witowski remembers this. We're not in that original pot of the original 33 Alliance districts. We were an add-on, and so we were never in the funding source that comes directly from Alliance. We've got the sidebar funding source, and that's primarily because of our state reps who lobbied for us to get that money.
There was
So,
two,
but when
right,
do we
us
cease
and Griswold,
to be an
Rotten,
alliance?
rotten.
right, sorry.
When do we cease to be an alliance district?
So every
Right.
5 years you get reassessed based on your test scores.
Mhm.
They told me, I think of this fall, if they ran the numbers, we would not be an opportunity district, but you get that lovely designation for 5 years. So the good news is that, in at least my mind, we're not really in that bottom 10, but we own that designation for 5 years. Alliance is every 5 years, so it should be coming up again, because it was my end of my first year that we became an Alliance district. But our scores, if you look at our scores, we haven't made enough gains,
Oh,
and the pandemic pushed us backwards a little. So I think we're gonna be an Alliance district for a while, but we have good company. Putnam's an Alliance District, Killingly's an Alliance District. It's the region, right?
Well, and how much do we really want to lose $200,000 a year?
Well, that's a good point, though. Succeed over here, but when you succeed,
You lose the funding.
right,
to
even though
continue
our
to-
demographic structure hasn't changed.
I've had superintendents say on calls, why don't we just throw up our hands and not work so hard? And then we'll get some funding.
But maybe that's, maybe that's a way to, we bring up a good point. Maybe that's a way to spin it. We're an alliance district, but that alliance district gives us the money that has given us the ability to stand up programs like welding, stand up programs like fire science programs, the
Yeah.
culinary arts, the CNA. Cause although the alliance district money may not have directly funded any of these, because we had some of that, we could start a couple of pathways, we could start a couple of programs and hopefully make them successful.
Yeah, it was
It
a
took
seed.
years of alliance funding to get the culinary program the way it is.
Right.
Yeah, it's seed funding.
Just a little bit of the pot every year
Yep.
and some Perkins dollars.
So if people want to spin alliance district as something negative, I say we spin it positive.
Mhm.
It's positive because it gives us funds that our townspeople wouldn't give us.
Mhm.
And that has allowed us to stand up some of these awesome programs. And do for our students what the state should have funded along.
Now you've grown programs and now we have to upkeep and fund. That's
Mhm.
what the naysayer is gonna say.
Even when we get grant money, that's what they say.
But
Yeah,
they're,
that's what
but
they're
they're but these programs are hopefully going to attract students to our district, increasing our census, decreasing our cost per student, as well as making Thompson an attractive place for both taxpayers, homeowners, and students to want to come in.
Totally agree. Go to the Thompson Mall on Saturday morning, transfer station. You'll have all the naysayers that go against it.
Yeah.
You never heard that? The Thompson Mall?
No, it's awesome.
God, I told you that. So- Never heard. that.
So
But
it's important to keep these slides in, like about.
I would, but I would make the, for what we added back in. That we were able to because of whether it was grant funding or moving something over to Alliance. But instead, maybe highlight some of those things that we would have had under Alliance dollars that now we don't because we used it for something else. Oh.
Rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yes, we do a lot of that here.
Paul's not happy either.
No,
Okay.
Paul wants more, inflation went up.
What's what is next week's looking at? Like, what are we concentrating on next week? What segment?
All of these notes.
Yeah,
Now we're into really the fine tuning of the presentation.
right. And speaking of next week, Bill, I'm not gonna be here. I'll be on Zoom.
Okay,
So could you be here to chair?
I certainly will.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So are we comfortable with the budget?
Hoping to be on Zoom.
No, now what we'll end up doing is we'll start to really fine tune again. Even though we're starting to realign this stuff, we'll start to fine tune.
Budget or the presentation?
Presentation.
Well, usually when we've done the presentation, a couple of things rear its head
Yeah.
and we. Kind of
Yeah.
fine tune it.
But we're going forward with
With what we
something like a
currently
one
have
point
right
one three,
now.
right?
No, I think we're back down to the 885,
Yeah, 1.13 mil, sorry.
lower than that.
No, that's what it is on here.
1.5.
Well, my paper says that I was given.
I thought the 985.
885.
Depending on how
We're
far.
all happy with that?
Mhm.
885
Yep.
and 1.15
I
mil.
mean,
4.2%.
rather than see it higher, but.
And there was a lot of that last year too.
Right,
People who voted no on the budget, if they thought the number was too low.
right.
That doesn't get us
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Never gonna go higher.
Question on there that says too high, too low, that. We'll call it, I don't even know what to call it. Thought process or strategy does not work.
Right.
So until there is a too high, too low question, there can't be a voting no
Yeah, it's
if you think it's too low.
Yeah, it's a big percentage of people, but
So if you,
yeah, a few.
Okay?
Can I just ask one, are we done?
Well, no, I have
once
to have
we-
citizens' comments, but you
I
can.
know, I've got two citizens comments for
Boy,
All right. Any citizens' comments? You can comment now. if you want.
Yes, I have one.
Oh,
Steve,
you have
yeah,
one. That was-
Hey, you two are driving together, you know.
Yeah.
First on the athletic parts we talked about at the beginning of the meeting. I heard us say that this was sort of a bad budget on the athletic part, but actually this is a cut from what was requested by understanding. So make sure you understand that. I think some of the comments I wasn't sure if I'm good at, this is really already been cut.
Right.
I think substantially from the request. But despite that, I do notice that the middle school athletic total is going up 45% over what we spent in the current year of health tax.
Is it uniforms or,
We spent about 50 grand this year, going to 73. So that may be about very justified. It may not even be enough. I'm not sure, but that's a big increase in. Compared to the price.
middle school athletics, on the first page, 9013.
The first page.
I'm going back to the detail. Transportation and contractual salary.
Again, much lower than what you asked for, but also still a lot of increase over the price current year. Full budget and just-
I don't know. Look at the detail.
There was salary increases on the stipends in the new contract.
Whatever, athletic project looks like one of the bigger increases.
Professional technical is the official, we usually look
Transportation.
figure 3% every year on what we have.
Oh, Steve, you're comparing to the 24 projected spend. Well, I'll even comparing it to the.
Oh, yeah, it's
But yeah, either one, take.
budget to budget is 15%.
12.8. That projected spend number, once again, I'll remind everyone, that's a half-year projection, and that may be a little low there. Or it might simply be the timing of when maybe the winter coaching hasn't been paid yet. That's a possibility. All right, so it might be that the current year estimate is too low. Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's only 15% budget to budget.
because the middle school athletics. is-
Planning for the year to next year, it's only about 45%. But if it's because the current year estimate is low, it's not accurate, then it's claimed.
Year over year, it's 15.2,
No, that's budget over budget.
budget over budget, right,
Right, budget over a year, it's a 45.
actual, right, to date, halfway through the school.
Well, it's not today, it's expected.
I don't
Yeah, it's a projected spend, but it's at the half year point and. It just doesn't pick up and stuff, okay, right, I missed that. Yeah. A couple other things, do we have enough money in those budgets for all the athletic activities, all the teams that are reasonable, whatever that means? Because whether the players are kind of hurt, if you don't have a state level team, is it worth doing? I don't think that matters at all. I think if kids are participating, that's what counts.
The numbers are in there for what we have.
Sorry?
Numbers are in there for what we have present. All the things, including football.
And again,
And-
even if the players aren't good, to get them off the couch, I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Right.
If they were high quality teams, we just give them the opportunity and the kids love just being a part of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Changing the subject a little bit, I know that there's a suggestion that we compare spending versus budget. I'm a little concerned because I give you a budget of $1 million and you spend it, that doesn't mean you did a good job. Because I give you a budget of $2 million, you probably would spend. I give you a budget of $1 billion and you spend it, doesn't mean you did a good job budgeting or controlling costs at all. So I heard your comment, but I'm not sure if it'll be received in the way you're trying to show. You just try to like explaining myself well. Especially, I talked about that for a second. Every year in the last 4 or 5 years, we have seen an increase in the cost, at least, I'm not sure about the current year, but all the past years, the year after that was substantially more than the year before, the year after that would be even more, the year after that would be even more. That's an argument that says that next year's number will be more than the current year's expectation. We're gonna say we're gonna spend $1.2 million this year. To say that we're only gonna spend that next year would be a change in that trend. Because again, I think in the past, we've never been able to level fund it successfully.
That is true.
Because I think I've heard we budgeted exactly the number of students we happen to have at the current time. And then shouldn't be a surprise because every year we've exceeded.
But
So
every year,
I'm not sure it's appropriate to budget only what you spend the current year. I
For
just
those-
don't think that's what you're going to see next year. At least the history hasn't been there. Very concerned about that.
for those years that we added additional out-of-district placements, when we had to reduce the budget, those were the numbers that were the first to go. So,
Oh, you mean when the budget was cut? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but every time every year we've spent more than the prior year, so level funding that. I hope that's right, but I'm concerned that you're not budgeting enough, and you should ask for what you're gonna need. Instead of saying you're gonna go talk to the Board of Finance for another $100,000, the response could very well be, well, you gotta manage your budget. We gave you whatever the total number is here, what's your budget, manage it. And it basically means you have to cut general ed stuff. I'm concerned about that. So I would urge you to budget what you expect to spend, not just what you happen to have today. And if the $1.2 million spending for the current year is what you really expect to spend next year, that's fine. But don't cut it just because it happens to be the current year number. History, again, my view of the history of that particular line has been that it's gone up every year. This would be a change if it doesn't go. I think it's important, change subject again, to talk to the Board of Finance and the town folks about the fact that the budget you're presenting is in fact a big cut from what the individual departments have requested. And again, using Bill's list of $167,000, that's down $204,000 from the what he requested. I don't know if the Board of Finance of the past has understood that. I sometimes think that the Board of Finance has thought that they're the first people to look at it, and there's always a bunch of bad budgets. I don't think they understand that you and Bill have taken an axe to it already.
So what was starting, 2.3 or 2.4, you said?
I think what you said was down 2.4 from
2.4.
what it is now, so it would have been over 3.5, 350,000, I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah,
So
so I think that's a good
I
point.
think it's something that, I think it's been understood in the.
And that $200,000 wasn't luxury items. It was stuff that, okay, we'll just delay it another year.
Priority.
So it's just a priority. And so, yeah, so it's,
Again, I don't know, as well as, you said the total budget was 2.1 increase and you're going in at roughly 900,000.
Right.
I don't know if the Board of Finance in the past has appreciated. I didn't know that. I knew it was cut some, I didn't realize it was that dramatic cuts in the past. So,
That's good.
again, I think that's a lesson to item to be explained to the Board of Finance and to the taxpayers or opponents of it.
goes back to that process that Justin was
Yeah.
talking
Well,
about.
and just to piggyback, it's like maybe when you do the presentation that you have an appendix that lists by the major departments that says, this was the ask for whatever, but we've already reduced it, and this is what we reduced,
I think that would help.
supplies were already cut, XY's number of field trips were already cut. all these building maintenance things were already cut. So this, we have already reviewed this with a fine tooth comb. And
Already.
right,
So I think on that, on that timeline, Melinda,
Yeah,
maybe on that timeline in the spaces between, put. What were the large meat chunks that came out of it? Right, so from the 2.1 to the 1.3 that we started with, that came to us. There was Bill's $300,000. Not you, Bill. Older Bill. That a little bit. His ask, right? And what other things came out of that? And that's put the highlights in between the spaces.
launching, painting, yeah.
Yeah, but beware, we always kick things down the road and then it becomes a big emergency.
Always,
Yeah,
always.
that's what happened to the track in the beginning. In the first place.
well, I think that's what makes this exercise even more meaningful is that
Yeah.
one of the comments that I saw on social media about the track starting and people were excited about it, it was like a Winnie post that had said, oh, they've awarded
Yes,
the bid, blah, blah, blah. And one of the comments was, oh, good, I'm excited to use it. Hopefully the town will maintain this one this time,
yeah.
and I'm like,
No.
well, we need tax dollars to
Right,
maintain it.
exactly.
So I think if they see the list of what we've already internally kind of prioritized and what we've already removed off the list, they will maybe be less apt to get their red pencil out and cut more,
I suppose that's the one thing that's kind of frustrating as a superintendent, because we all know the process to get to that number.
Right.
And then you go before the Board of Finance and, you better sharpen your pencil. Are you kidding me?
Right.
We've been sharpening it all along.
And I think particularly since they don't go line by line,
Right.
that this will make them see kind of on a line by line basis what we've already
Sharpen their pencil
and
too.
it'll force them to kind of see a line by line if we provide it as a, evidence at one of the meetings.
I might just final comment. The healthcare, we included the 5% increase. Like the rate increase, but the healthcare cost, according to the high object detail, going up more than 10%.
Mhm.
I think, and I know there's a lot of moving parts, and that's why it really is going up 10, but a lot more than the 5 that sort of talked about, it's going up 10%. I assume it's because some people are changing plans and
Yeah.
some people and so forth, so, but the healthcare cost for the town is going up 10%.
It would only be 5% if we had exactly the same people with exactly the same roles, with exactly the same coverage.
Else
And
we don't.
People stop
not
making
the
babies.
case even close.
But
I understand your points. Wait a minute, he told me 5.
exactly, and, it's going up more than $250,000.
Right.
It's a big chunk of the change from 1 year to the next.
And I think though you said that was gonna be part of possibly the little explanation on the hyperlink thing, is that when there is something like that occurs, that we can explain it
Right.
in that way, so it doesn't start drama,
It's-
I took a couple notes and I just wanted to throw this out. At some point, during our process, I don't know how we do this, but if we are able to. Ask the parents of students that, have selected other schools. Couple of questions. Why do they choose to educate their child outside of our town? And where did we, as a school, fall short in their mind? Second part of that, and I've heard this a couple of times, and I wrote down the number. We have $1.2 million that we spend in transportation, busing our students here. I don't know how many students now come with their parents. But the traffic that comes up on these school grounds at student drop off is incredible. You see the numbers of the lack of numbers on the buses. So just doing quick math, just 50% of our students on the buses right now, it's costing us $6,700 a day to run those buses. So when I hear from parents saying that, and I've heard this. Well, look how much you guys are spending on transportation. Time out. You choose not to use the transportation. So if that's the case, you're basically giving you might as well just give your son or daughter $15.77. Every time they do not take the bus. So again, it's, don't tell us that we're spending this money frivolously. When you're choosing not to use the services that we do have readily available. And I'm just trying to think of a polite way to say it.
And we're legally obliged to provide the bus service.
Correct.
You can't, if half the students take it and half the students don't, it doesn't matter. If all the students take it, all the students, so they're still spending the same $6,700 a day.
Right, but why ask the parents that are bringing their students, why are you choosing not to use the public transportation? I'm not looking for an answer.
Reasons.
I can tell you, so I'm a parent that drives their children to school. It doesn't really have anything to do with the town. It actually stems from something traumatic that happened to me as a child on the school bus.
Yep.
So that's probably not like the most common, but you have like
Well,
random.
yeah, like
outliers like
my
that.
children, I drive them to school, but they take the bus home, and the reason being.
Give me $15.77. Every day.
That they need to stand out in the weather, whether it be cold or raining, and
Guess
wait
what?
sometimes 30+ minutes for the bus.
Guess what?
So for me to drive them and drop them off, it's easier to
Guess
take it
what?
home. But I'm sure there's a lot of people
I
in
know,
that.
but guess what? That's
Yeah,
the thing.
don't complain about it.
But I'm sitting with 25 kids, 3 pickups in Green Acres, because there was 50 kids in the damn neighborhood. And we sat out in the weather.
Oh, no, I did. I sat out in the
I mean,
weather
it's $1
too.
million, $1.2 million that we spend. I don't know, it boggles my mind. Like, when we went to school, if you didn't take the bus. I mean, if you literally came up here with your parents. You're like, what? Everyone else is like, oh my God, what did he do? You know?
Sometimes.
You're a loser if you're on the bus.
I'm saying, nowadays, there's a lot of people that probably work from home,
Yeah.
like myself, and that have the ability to take their children into school that formerly did not, because they had to be in an office by 7 o'clock,
I don't know,
I think
just,
that's
my mother had a beauty salon out of our house all the years that I was there, and you know what, I still took the bus. Just saying, it's 1.2 million that we spend. And half people aren't even utilizing it, but it's still an expense. All right, I'm off my box. I understand.
Any citizens' comments from Zoom? Oh, hearing none.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah.
Doing,